Hello guys, welcome to the channel. Today we are talking about what if Issei was the son of Great-red and Ophis. Part 2. Since the dawn of time, Ophis and Great-red have been at odds with one another. But what happens when, through an inexplicable twist of fate, a new being was born through their conflict? Follow Issei, the third dragon god, on his journey as the world will not be same again. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. It will help us make. In the city of Kyo, we find our main protagonist Issei walking towards his intended destination. 8 years have been since the day that tragedy struck them and had taken away Shuri and Akeno's life. In that time, a lot of things have changed, the most obvious one being Issei. He has now become a 17-year-old man who's but a mere shadow of his former self. Following all his training with Tanin and his parents, he has acquired such a muscular and toned build that he has practically become chiseled. A literal Adonis is what some of the female drakes back in Tanin's territory called him, and no doubt so will any female, and they would not be wrong. His biceps were big, his shoulders were broad, and every other muscle has developed accordingly, yet he was not as bulky as a bodybuilder. Adding to the fact that he stands at 185 centimeters tall, gave him an intimidating presence that no one would want to go up against. Yet, the bright smile he wears, in contrast to his build, gave him a small air of innocence that one would not expect from a man like him. Although his physique has changed a great deal compared to the past, not much else has changed. Granted, his appearance did change a bit, having short spiky black hair with crimson outlines. His two reptilian eyes having red sclera with vertically slatted black pupils currently disguised through magic, revealing only golden eyes. Issei didn't like hiding his features from the world since he was very proud of who he was, but he understood that it would cause panic not only with the general populace who were just humans, but also might raise some unwanted issues with the devils currently occupying this town, and the last thing he needed right now was unwanted attention. He promised his parents to keep a low profile and avoid unnecessary attention, and that is exactly what he'll do, if anything then to keep them from worrying about him. It has been over 8 years since the incident, and the situation in Kyo has calmed down enough to allow Issei and his parents to return to their old home. Although many dragons, most especially the younglings who grew up alongside Issei, didn't want them to leave, pleading for them to stay. However, they eventually conceded when Issei explained to them the reason he is going back. It is not because he does not consider the dragon territory his home. That is far from the truth. The amazing years he spent here alongside everyone turned this place into another home that he loves with all his heart and considers every resident a second family, which touched their hearts. Yet, the reason he wishes to return to Kyo is due to the fact that it is the place holds significant memories of his time with Akeno and Shuri. It is the only place where he is able to feel some type of connection to the woman he loved and to his aunt who took care of him. Thus, with much reluctance but understanding, everyone wished them a safe journey back. "It has been a long time since I've been here," he said, looking up at the sky, reminiscing about old times. A lot of things have occurred over the past 8 years since the incident. He let out a small chuckle when he recalled Uncle Tanin's reaction to the fact that not only were Ophis and Great-red married but also had a son together. Flashback: after traveling to the underworld, Issei and his parents stealthily made their way to the dragon's territory governed by Tanin. On the way there, Issei could not help but notice the differences between Earth and the underworld, more specifically how the sky itself is purple instead of blue. There was even an artificially created moon. Apparently, according to what his uncle stated, they created it for the sake of newly reincarnated devils, which was very nice despite the fact that they are devils. "I still prefer the sky back on Earth," he thought to himself. Despite saying that, You could tell by his expression how excited he was to be able to visit, albeit discreetly, a brand new place, taking in the surrounding environment, spotting the differences between here and Earth. Unfortunately, his excitement soon turned into sorrow when he thought about how he wished that he could share this view with Akeno, reminding himself that she is no longer here. A small tear leaked out of his eye before he wiped it off, breathing in and out to calm himself as he noticed that they are arriving at their destination. Plus, he vowed to himself and Akeno that he would be strong and move forward. Arriving at their destination, Issei couldn't help but be at awe at what he was seeing. The Dragon Mountain, true to its name, was filled with tall mountains as far as the eye could see, with vast forests surrounding each of them. You could practically feel the nature all around him. Issei could spot many things that were flying around in the distance. Dragons flying freely through the skies, and he also spotted dragons who dwelled in caves based on those very mountains. He had never seen so many of his own kind before, and it seems that many of those dragons turned their attention towards them. Eventually, 2 large dragons landed before them. They were most likely guards who patrolled the area, and sure enough, one of them asked, "Halt, you are about to trespass into our territory. We have not been given any notice about any visitors coming here, so I will ask you to state your business and identify yourselves." The red dragon, most likely a fire dragon, stated, thus revealing himself to be indeed a god. Great-red stepped forward to answer him. "Please be at ease, young dragon. We only wish to talk to Tanin over a few matters. We ourselves are dragons." Great-red, Ophis and Issei all revealed their wings to prove his claim, and please believe me when I say that we do not mean any harm to you or any denizens of this place. In terms of our identity, it would be better to introduce ourselves in the presence of Tanin, so if you could bring him here, I would be most grateful," stated Great-red. The fire dragon raised an eyebrow at this. Normally, he would not permit this and would tell them to leave, but his instincts were screaming at him not to mess with the beings in front of him, so with little choice, he went to get Tanin, who would hopefully be able to deal with the situation at hand. "Very well, but please wait here and do not cause any trouble." After a short wait, a large purple dragon could be seen making his way towards them. Issei could instantaneously tell that this was Tanin, the blaze meteor dragon and former dragon king his father previously talked about. The amount of power that exuded from him easily outclassed him and any dragon currently present, save for his parents. He looked in awe at this majestic dragon before him and hoped one day he would be as cool as that. After Tanin landed, he turned his attention to his visitors and introduced himself. "Greetings, my name is Tanin, the Blaze Meteor Dragon and former Dragon King. I am the leader of this place and I heard that you wish to speak to me. May I inquire who you are?" Tanin questioned, to which Great-red let out a small giggle. "I'm surprised you do not recognize me simply by looking at me. Not many dragons boast 4 wings, but I guess I can give you a hint," he said, letting out a mere fraction of his power, but this was enough to cause several dragons to take a step back in fear, understanding that this dragon was beyond their league, but none was more surprised than Tanin himself, due to the fact that he had felt this aura many years ago and never in his wildest dream would he have imagined this being to come before him today. It can't be. Is that you?" Great-red stuttered Tanin as he himself took a step back, fearing the answer that he knew to be true. At this revelation, every dragon suddenly jerked backwards as their expressions turned from shock to fear. Everyone, no matter what faction, knew exactly who Great-red was. The most powerful being in existence. Simply the mention of his name causes fear to spread in one's being. To stand in his very presence multiplied that fear by a huge amount, as many dragons now feared for their very lives. Many mothers clutched desperately their young to protect them even if it was futile. Seeing everyone's frightful expressions, Great-red dismissed his aura. Please be at ease. Like I have previously stated to your god, I have not come here to fight and I do not wish to cause any harm to your people. I have simply come here to talk with you over a few delicate matters, spoke Great-red in a calm and gentle manner, trying to get his point across. Seeing that there was no hostility in Great-red caused Tanin to breathe a huge sigh of relief, and seeing Tanin relaxed caused the surrounding dragons to relax. Very well, I believe you. If that is the case, then may I ask what it is you wish to ask of me, and may I inquire as to the identity of the people you brought with you, he asked, turning his attention to the people in question. He'll come to know that some questions are better left unanswered. Very well, in that case, first let me introduce you to my mate Ophis, she. Unfortunately, he immediately got interrupted by a wide-eyed Tanin who could not believe what he heard. Did you just Ophis? As in the Ouroboros dragon god? No one has heard from her in almost a decade, and this entire time she was with Wait, did you say she was your mate? How is that even possible? He shifted his attention towards her. From what I heard, you cannot even stand the mere sight of him and even created a brigade to get rid of him. Gone was the regal and composed Tanin that all of them was used to, and in his place was a panic and stuttered dragon. Every dragon present had never seen Tanin act like this before, but no one could really blame him considering who he was facing and the amount of information revealed. Great-red simply shrugged it off. Well, let's just say we both got over it. Anyways, let me introduce our son. This is Issei Hiauda, he said, bringing Issei forward. Oh, you have a son. I see. After hearing the news, his mind was not able to cope with the information and as a result, he fainted. Tanin Summer father. Everyone ran towards him worried about his state. Great-red and Issei could not help but laugh at the situation. Even Ophis couldn't help but release a small giggle. It took about a minute for Tanin to recover, and then he took a moment to process everything he learned. After taking a deep breath and coughing into his fist, he began speaking. My apologies for that earlier display. This news honestly went beyond the scope of what my mind could handle. First, I would like to formally welcome you to our territory, something I should have done in the first place, and it is an honor to have both dragon gods in our presence. But if I may ask as to how all this came about? Tanin inquired, to which Great-red nodded, saying that he was about to get to that before somebody interrupted him, causing Tanin to flinch. Anyway, Great-red started explaining to Tanin everything that has happened from Issei's birth to the events that led them to his territory. The most surprising thing that he revealed was the fact that it was Issei himself who was responsible for the massive power outburst that he felt previously. Oh ho! That is indeed very impressive. He soon turned his attention towards the boy and continued, so the youngling was responsible for the unknown power everyone is scared of. Although, considering that he is the son of not one but two dragon gods, I should not expect anything else. What is your name, young Drake? Tanin asked, turning his attention to Issei, who stepped forward. Hello Mr. Tanin. It is a pleasure to meet you. My name is Issei Hiauda. Issei introduced himself nervously, causing Tanin to giggle a bit. It is an honor to make your acquaintance as well, Issei. To stand here in the presence of the son of both dragon gods is nothing short of a miracle. Also, you do not need to call me Mr. Simply Tanin would do. You will come to learn that dragons do not really care about formalities like other factions do. His tone then shifted to a more compassionate one. Allow me to offer you my sincere condolences over the loss of your mate. For a dragon to lose one of his mates is the hardest and painful thing to experience, and for you to have gone through such an ordeal at such a young age fills me with much grief, and I am very sorry for your loss. He then looked at Ophis and Great-red. I also extend my condolences to you both for having lost a friend in the process. Having lost so many comrades myself, I can understand the pain that you are all going through. Thank you very much, Tanin. We appreciate it, said Ophis with a light bow, a few tears escaping her eyes at the reminder of losing Shuri and Akeno. Yeah, thank you. Anyways, like I previously told you, due to recent events, various factions are currently undergoing investigation in Kyo, trying to figure out what entity was responsible for the devastation caused there. As a result, we wish to lay low for a while until all of this blows over, and I was hoping you would allow us to live in your territory. In addition, my son wishes to undergo training to become stronger. Unfortunately, Ophis and myself have been born powerful and have not trained a day in our lives, so I cannot offer him an efficient training as I would like. We did teach him the basics, however we have no idea how to go from there, and I heard that you had been training the younger generation of dragons, therefore would be the best qualified for the job. Tanin nodded, signaling his understanding of their presence in his territory. I see. And I take it that since you wish to lay low for a while, you also do not want me to tell Mephistopheles or the devils about your presence here, correct? Inquired Tanin, to which he received an answer via Great-red's and Ophis nod. Indeed we do, Tanin. I understand the difficult position we are putting you in concerning the fact that you are now part of the devil's community, but, said a worried Ophis, until she was interrupted by Tanin raising his hand, palm upwards. Please, say no more, Ophis. As you may or may not know, I turned this place into a safe haven for all dragonkind in order to ensure our survival as a species. For me to turn you down now would make me a hypocrite, wouldn't it? I would be honored to have you and your family living here amongst us, and you have my word as a dragon king that no one will ever know of your presence here. Furthermore, as I stated earlier, your son is a miracle like none other, born in an era where our kind has been either hunted down to near extinction or sealed. To see your son a being born of two dragon gods, brings joy in my heart that there may be some hope for our kind after all. Yes. He is our precious little miracle, she said so tenderly as she looked towards her son. Great-red patted Issei's head, nodding, illustrating his agreement, while Issei could not help but blush in embarrassment at all the praise he is given. Issei Hiauda. Issei turned his attention towards Tanin, who called him. From what your parents just told me, one of the reasons to seek me out was to aid you in your training, but I would like to hear of your opinion on the matter, since in the end, it is your decision that matters. For what purpose do you seek strength, and how far are you willing to go to obtain it? Inquired Tanin in a serious tone. Issei took a moment to think about his question, but it did not take long for him to come up with an answer. Taking a deep breath, he looked at Tanin straight in the eyes and answered, the day that Akeno and Auntie Shuri died was the worst day of my life. I have never felt so helpless than on that very day, where I was unable to do anything but watch as my friend was taken away from me. When I was trapped in despair, Akeno saved me from loneliness, and yet, when she needed my help, I couldn't do anything to help her. Despite the fact that I am the son of the two most powerful dragons in existence, I was powerless to do anything. He shouted the last part as a few tears escaped his eyes, but he still continued. I vowed to them that I would do anything to become stronger for their sakes as well as my own. I need to get stronger so that I will never feel so helpless again, and be strong enough to protect those I care about. Never again do I want to lose anyone because of my lack of strength. This time, instead of sadness, his eyes burned with an unshakable determination to become stronger. Seeing this, Tanin was very pleased. Ho ho. Very interesting. Remember to hold on to that incredible resolve, for it is what will aid you through our training, said Tanin as he gestured towards another dragon who stepped forward. This is my youngest son, Borva. Despite being the youngest, he is without a doubt the strongest of his siblings, and he will be your sparring partner during your training. If I am not mistaken, he is about 3 years older than you, so I hope you two will get along. Are you ready, young Drake? Asked Tanin. Yes, I am, said Issei with a fire burning brightly inside of him. Tanin smirked and said, then let us begin. End of flashback. That day marked the beginning of his training, and Issei was very happy that he could progress towards his goal. At first, whenever he would spar against Borva, despite giving everything he had, he just could not defeat his adversary, which would result in him pouting in frustration in front of his mother. Ophis could not help but find him absolutely adorable whenever she would try to encourage him whenever he gets into that state. Yet, whenever Issei and Borva sparred, despite the fact that she cheered for Issei all the way, a small part of her could not help but hope for Borva to win, just for the chance to be able to see that adorable pouting expression of his. Flashback. Issei POV. Every time we finished sparring, we would head out to the main clearing where Tanin and Issei had begun the training sessions. As it turns out, Tanin has a peerage of his own, which I found kind of cool. They act as captains. Since there is too many dragons here for Tanin to train on his own, they split into groups and are trained by each of Tanin's peerage members respectively. Many dragons were unhappy that they couldn't join me in my group, the one trained by Tanin, but this is something they could only mull over as the groups were already set before I ever arrived here. Interestingly enough, the groups aren't split from strongest to weakest. They're split by how well dragons adapt and grow in a short amount of time. In other words, Tanin teaches the most and at the fastest pace in one day. Meanwhile, different members teach different amounts and at different, slower paces. According to Tanin, the greatest skill a dragon has is not strength itself, but rather the ability to progress quickly. Apparently both him and my parents agreed that this was my biggest quality. Adaptation and growth. That is the greatest piece of a dragon, or so he says. Although I honestly did not believe it, considering the amount of defeats I accumulated with Borva. Tanin and Issei sighed. Listen, Issei, I do not think you understand the incredible growth you are currently undergoing. You are merely a decade old, and yet you have developed abilities unbefitting your age. Did you know it takes many months and even years for a dragon to master partial transformation from human to dragon, and yet, from what your parents told me, you were able to accomplish this in under a month. I also remember them telling me that you were able to fend off dozens of rogue devils, including an 8-winged devil, all while protecting a Keno from harm when you were but 7 years old. That is mind-boggling, my boy. It's true that my son has gotten the better of you in your battles, but that is primarily due to the fact that he had more battle experience compared to you. However, experience can be gained through training, which is exactly what you are doing every day. Plus, you may not have noticed due to your self-depression, but you are getting stronger every day. Your parents and I could see that every battle, Borva had to exert more and more strength in order to keep up with you and ultimately win. You need to have more confidence in yourself, young Drake. That is what will aid you in acquiring the strength you so desire. This rapid growth of yours far surpasses that of any dragon kings and even the heavenly dragons. You are the son of the 2 most powerful dragons in existence, so move forward with confidence and eventually all your training will pay off, stated Tanin with absolute certainty. I was very moved by the unshakable faith my uncle had of me. So, are you really to continue training, Issei Hiauda? Asked Tanin. Hi, Shishao, I answered with confidence and determination. We learned a lot during training. Or at least I did. A lot of the dragons were training with partners to practice the dragon-style martial art. Tanin created a fighting style called the dragon style or Ryu style. Anyway, the Ryu style is a special martial art that Tanin specifically created for dragons. This is due to what the style relies on in order to be properly used. Dragons were once the greatest predators in existence, surpassing that of any other races including gods, to the point that if you looked on the list of strongest beings, you would have seen it filled primarily with dragons. Almost as if they were destined to rule the skies, seas, and lands. Their bodies are built to be strong, spirits unbreakable, minds tenacious, and much more. All in all, they are beings that are meant to win. And the main indicator is, once again, their bodies. For example, their instincts. The very reason that Ryu style is perfect for dragons. You got to hand it to Tanin, he knows exactly what to do. Even my dad could not help but marvel at his training method, stating that he would never have even thought to come up with a style like that. The way Ryu style works is simple in nature. A reactionary style of martial arts. You see, out of any living race in existence, dragons have the greatest natural instincts. The average dragon has better instincts than a high-class devil. So Ryu style relies on such a factor by existing as a reactionary fighting style. In simplest terms, when an enemy attack, you then counter-attack. At first when I heard of it, it sounded a bit confusing. Although no one could blame me since I was just a toddler back then. This is how it works, according to Tanin, it takes advantage of your instincts to the fullest. The reason is precisely for the reaction aspect. Practically, you get into your stance and prepare for a physical attack. Once the enemy attacks, immediately dodge or block, then counter. The counter is what matters most. During the counter, you should be attacking maliciously and relentlessly. Not allowing the enemy to counter you, because the moment they try, you would counter their counter and begin your assault from there. I know it's weird and many would think, why the hell would an enemy let you attack you so much, which is exactly what I asked him. But there's the ingenuity of it, it's not about them letting you attack, it's you not letting them attack. It doesn't necessarily rely on speed. You don't need to be insanely faster than your opponent to use it, in fact, even being half as fast would be sufficient. Because your instincts kick in and warn you of their attack before it's even made it a quarter of the way towards you. That's why instinct is so important. That's why it's perfect for dragons. That's why it can be used for enemies stronger than you. That's why it's a reactionary style. That's why there's so much countering. You will know what attack they are going to use the moment their muscles tense. You can smell and even hear the fire welling up inside the bellies of another dragon. You can hear the sound of a magic circle being conjured by the symbol. You can feel someone's aura flare from long distances or quietly seep out from someone's body. It's amazing. Instinct is truly a terrifying concept. No wonder every pantheon feared and hunted down our race. The main part of it is learning to hone your instincts. This is what Tanin wanted me to learn above all else. Luckily, I did have previous experience requiring my instincts, which Shishao, again, praised me for accomplishing despite being so young. When I fought all those devils several years ago, I listened to my instincts in order to be able to handle multitudes of devils, and if it weren't for them, the devil Valpa might have been able to defeat me and I wouldn't be alive today. Needless to say, after many months of training, I had finally achieved my first win against my rival Borva. I was so ecstatic that you could literally see me running around everywhere like a kid who just received his favorite toy. My parents found it adorable, well, mostly my mom. My dad was too busy laughing with the other dragons. Taninochi-san was very thrilled and happy for me, congratulating me on my first victory, saying I deserved it after so many days of constant training. Heck, even Borva came forward and put his fist forward, claiming that next time he would win. I bumped his fist smiling and told him, bring it on, my friend. End of flashback. Unfortunately, not everything was sunshine and rainbows. At the start, everything seemed to move along smoothly until 6 months later, Issei was given news that nearly tore his heart apart. Barakiel's attempted suicide. It may have succeeded were it not for the timely intervention of Great-red, who happened to come by and visit his friend and held him in place. Ophis and Issei quickly stopped what they were doing and immediately headed towards Barakiel's place. They arrived to find his father trying his best to talk his uncle out of killing himself, but it seemed that none of his words were taken to heart. Issei couldn't help but notice how broken Barakiel had become these past few months, which caused him great sadness knowing he can't do anything to console him. While Great-red was restraining him, Ophis walked up to Barakiel and literally slapped him across the face with tears steaming down her face as she screamed at him, asking him how could he even think of doing such a thing and how Akeno and Shuri would have never wanted him to join them like this. As Ophis was tearing into Barakiel, he could not help but feel like shit because deep down he knew she was right. Shuri and Akeno would never want him to go down such a dark path. Yet, he lost the will to live. Without a warm family to go back to, he no longer had any motivation to move on despite the support of his friends. However, he felt even worse when he saw his own nephew Issei moving closer to him with clear sadness depicted on his face. Barakiel simply didn't have the heart nor the strength to face him, so he looked away in shame, but that did not stop Issei. Flashback please, keep on living, for me, Mom, Dad, but most specifically for Akeno and Auntie Shuri, please. I've already lost so much, I can't bear to lose you as well, Uncle. He continued crying into his uncle's chest, praying that his words would get through to him. He got his answer when Barakiel returned his embrace. As Barakiel answered him, I'm so sorry, Issei, my boy, to have caused you such pain. You are right. I have to live on, for their sakes. Thank you, Issei, he said with tears strolling down his face. Separating himself from Issei, he wiped his tears as he turned towards Great-red. Thank you for saving me, my friend, he told his friend with a smile. Great-red responded by bringing him into a hug. My pleasure, my friend. I am just glad you are okay, but don't you ever do something like that again, you idiot. The thought of losing you is not something I can bear. You are my friend, so please rely on me when you need to, Great-red said as Barakiel felt his shoulder moisten, clearly indicating that Great-red was crying, which made him feel really horrible to cause such pain to his friend. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Barakiel repeated again and again. Ophis then also came forward to embrace him as well. I am just so relieved you are fine. Just like Issei said, you need to live on for Shuri and Akeno-chan, otherwise everything will have been for nothing, said a teary Ophis. You are both right, Barakiel said, releasing a soft chuckle. Looking at this caused helped alleviate his sadness, believing that his uncle would make it through this. End of flashback. That day was definitely one of the worst days of his life. To have seen his uncle in such a state was something that tore at his heart. Yet, ironically, it also boosted his motivation to become stronger. In order to make sure that no one he cares about will ever shed tears of sadness. Luckily, since that day, Barakiel had slowly made progress towards recovery, thanks to the constant help of his parents as well as his friends. Even the usual laid-back and carefree Azazel, after hearing what transpired, cried his heart out and instantly came to help, making sure that Barakiel had everything he needed, even offering to take care of his work despite the fact that he solemnly likes to work. As a result, bit by bit, Barakiel slowly recovered from his depression and went back to work as soon as possible. However, it was obvious that there would be no way to fill the void left behind by his family no matter what they did, but they still did their best. Great-red spends much of his time hanging out with Barakiel whenever he could. Ophis would often have talks about her memories of Shuri with him, which sometimes cheered him up. Issei would talk about everything that has been going on with him, from all the brutal training he is undergoing, the new abilities he created, and even just how he spent his time with his friends in the dragon territory. His uncle would also talk about his activities in Grigory while also reassuring him that he is all right. Issei would also sometimes unleash his complaints in front of his uncle, which would cause him to laugh. Issei really enjoyed spending these moments with him, and the same can be said for Barakiel. Throughout the years, after a lot of grueling training, Issei managed to gain several abilities that helped him get a lot stronger. The first, having a complete mastery of fire. You would think that it is nothing special since he is a dragon and dragons are known for their flames and the fact that many other supernatural beings share this ability. However, you could not be more wrong. When I say complete mastery of fire, I meant it in every way. Not only was he able to learn a variety of moves utilizing his flame, but he was also able to change the characteristics of his flame into something new. Funny thing is, that he learned this by accident when he was out training. After a hard day of grueling training, he felt so drained that he desperately wanted something to cool him down. All of a sudden, his flame suddenly shifted and changed to a bluish hue. But what surprised him the most was that his flame suddenly felt cold to the touch instead of the usual heat. Having no idea what happened, he decided to test his new flame, focusing forward and firing a shot. Instead of incinerating everything to ash like his usual fire, anything caught along the trajectory of his new flame was frozen solid. Trees, rocks and even small bugs hiding underground were frozen. After seeing this unexpected result, only one thing came to mind for Issei. "That was so cool," shouted an ecstatic Issei as he marveled at his new ability. Unfortunately, with his sudden lack of concentration, his flame turned back into its original state. Wanting to recreate it, he thought back to his previous actions that helped spawn the ability as he conjured flames in the palm of his hand. Concentrating really hard, he tried to visualize the flames that could freeze even hell itself. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen, but then his fire slowly began changing from orange to blue, and like before, his new flame was chilling, no pun intended. Now that he was able to activate his new ability, he decided that his next course of action would be to inform Tanin of this new discovery. Hopefully, Tanin will be able to help him create a training regiment in order to help him improve his ability. Making his way to the training area, where he knew Tanin was currently located, he spotted his mentor guiding other young drakes, helping them improve their skills and abilities. Issei decided to wait until he was finished since he was not in any hurry, so he would wait for the lesson to end before asking for his assistance. An hour passed by until Tanin finished his lesson before looking around and spotting Issei waiting in the corner. "Issei, my boy, how are you doing?" asked Tanin, making his way towards his nephew / disciple. Issei nodded. "I'm doing great, uncle. I have been training my abilities on the outskirts of our territory." While training, it seems I have stumbled upon a new ability and I was hoping to ask for your guidance. Oh, another new ability. I would be happy to offer you any advice I can. Go ahead and show me," said Tanin as he crossed his arms, waiting patiently to see Issei's new power. Issei nodded and generated fire on the palm of his hand. Closing his eyes, he concentrated on the flame to change it to what he dubbed Ice Flame, and moments later, just as before, his flame changed from orange to blue and generated a freezing aura capable of freezing anything that comes into contact with it. Issei opened his eyes, waiting to see what his uncle thought of his new ability, only to see an unexpected reaction from him. Tanin was staring wide-eyed in surprise at him, causing Issei to tilt his head as if asking him what's wrong. Taking a moment to recompose himself, Tanin took in a deep breath before speaking. "Issei, can you tell me exactly how you came across this ability?" Issei nodded and started explaining in detail all the actions he took which led to this new discovery. After he finished, Tanin sighed. "Issei, are you aware that what you've accomplished is considered impossible?" "Really?" asked a stunned Issei, earning a small giggle from his uncle. "Yes, really. Any wizard, yokai, devils or any other experts of fire would not even be able to come close to what you have accomplished here. There are even many different gods and goddesses of fire from various pantheons that would find what you achieved to be impossible by nature. Heck, I cannot even believe that you were able to perform such a task. Just being able to have complete control over fire, being able to bend it to your will into a malleable state, is a difficult task that many take entire lifetimes to accomplish. On top of that, fire is considered to be the most difficult element to master, as it is very hard to control and is extremely volatile. Many talented people who tried mastering fire ended up paying the ultimate price when they could control the power. Even the gods themselves spend much of their lifetime training to master their elements. Yet, here you are, barely 2 decades old, having not only accomplished that which took centuries, possibly millennia, for gods, but you were able to achieve what was considered impossible and actually succeeded in changing the fire's property and characteristic. In fact, now that I think about it, I have heard of one god who attempted to perform what you just did, and if memory serves, he did succeed, but at great cost of his life force, so it became useless and was discarded as an impossible task, yet you managed to do it without any repercussions. I am both very proud and confused of your achievement," spoke Tanin as he wondered to himself how this was possible. Issei also tried figuring it out but came up with no answer. As they were both stuck, they decided to ask Ophis and Great-red, hoping that they could possibly shed some light on this information. After explaining the situation, Great-red asked to see this ability firsthand to get a better idea of the issue. Issei conjured up a flame in the palm of his hand and, remembering what he did previously, focused on the fire to change its property, and surely enough, the orange hue was replaced with blue, and instead of permeating heat, the flame felt cold to the touch. His father whistled. "Amazing, my son, as always. I am impressed your rapid growth. I honestly believed it would have taken you many more months or possibly even years to reach this level." This caused Tanin to raise a brow. "It sounds to me like you know what is going on. If so, would you mind sharing your knowledge, because as far as I know, what Issei just did is practically impossible." Great-red laughed. "Tanin, my friend, you just answered your own question." "What do you mean?" asked a confused Tanin. "Have you already forgotten which aspect I rule over?" asked Great-red. Tanin widened his eyes as he connected the dots. "You mean?" Great-red simply smirked. "It seems you figured it out." "That's correct. Issei's ability is in fact technically impossible to accomplish if he were a typical person or dragon for that matter. But, Issei is my son and therefore has access to my powers. In the past, Issei was able to subconsciously draw upon my distortion ability during combat against stray devils. Unfortunately, he did not possess sufficient training or experience to call upon it once more, but it is a different story right now. You can basically summarize this new ability as a more advanced version of my distortion ability that helped Issei generate these, what you call, impossible flames into existence. However, that is only part of it, the other factor being his will. Just like how in our dreams, anything is possible as long as you will it so. Think of it, kind of like a sacred gear. Sacred gears can adapt and evolve based on their wielder's thoughts, needs, and feelings, gaining abilities or qualities as time passes. During training, Issei desperately needed to cool down, and his power responded to his desire by changing his normal flames into ice, thus giving him what he desired. His powers basically evolved and adapted to suit his needs. It's amazing, to tell you the truth. I believed it would take you a couple more years until you discovered such a power, but once again, you surpass my expectations. Just what I expected of my son. Great-red coughed to calm himself before continuing in terms of being able to use his ability without repercussions. Well, you should know the reason, considering his near-limitless stamina courtesy of his mother. However, these abilities do take up quite a bit of energy and concentration, so overusing them will cause him to wear out eventually, so he will need to be careful. Although this can easily be fixed through training, after all, imagination is the soil that can bring dreams to life. Both Tanin and Issei were impressed by his speech and knowledge. Besides, this is not the first time you used such an ability, added Great-red. What do you mean, Dad? I don't recall ever doing something like this. As far as I remember, this is the first time I've been able to change the characteristics of my flame, said Issei as he pondered a time where he could have used his ability but with no success. Great-red just sighed. Not that I can blame you, since it was during the time you went berserk, so there is no way you would be able to recall such an event. Nor would I want you to, since I know how much you would blame yourself, but we are getting off topic here. The point is that in that state, you did not use your normal flames but rather a crimson flame, which represented the embodiment of your power. This showed me that you already possessed the potential within you to change the characteristics of your flames, explained his father. Wow, said Issei. A remark that was shared by Tanin as well. Interesting. In that case, how should we go about training him? This is uncharted territory which I am not familiar with, and, regrettably, I have no idea what the most effective training method would be, pondered Tanin, rubbing his chin. In terms of training, leave it to me. I will help Issei to improve his new power as it is connected to my abilities, said Great-red before turning his attention to his son. However, in the end everything will depend on your imagination, son. Since, like I said earlier, imagination is the soil that can bring dreams to life. Are you ready? Issei simply smirked. I'm fired up. Let's do this. Since then, Issei had gone through a lot of training with his father in order to not only understand his new powers but figure out how to expand and improve them. With a lot of hard work and effort, he managed to accumulate several new flames in his arsenal. The first was his ice flame. Like stated previously, anything that comes into contact with it would become frozen solid. Sounds amazing, if not for the fact that this ability could be good or bad depending on the environment it was used or against specific opponents. During one training session against Borva just above a volcano, he used this ability against him only for the ice to melt as soon as it was formed, meaning that his ability was pretty useless in extreme temperatures. In any other setting, his ice would have covered Borva from head to tail. He could make it work, However, he would have had to focus his entire concentration and waste a lot more energy in order to make the ice more durable, which, after the fact, left him vulnerable for a counter-offensive which was not very efficient. Issei also noticed that against higher-level opponents, his ice is basically rendered useless. For instance, against Tannin, it would do nothing but momentarily stun him before he shattered the ice using his brute strength. Against his father, it didn't even faze him. Although, in the end, after many sparring sessions, he discovered that this ability was in general weak against dragons due to the fact that a dragon's core emits much more heat than any other race's, since it is what generates their powerful flames and aura. The perfect example being Borva. While the ice managed to cover him entirely, after 30 seconds he was able to shatter it by condensing heat around his body. All in all, it was a very useful flame, and this was only one of many flames that he discovered. Another flame that he managed to learn very early on was his healing flames. They are colored yellow, and just like its name suggests, they are able to heal wounds and injuries. He learned this ability to help alleviate his mother's worries whenever he injured himself performing his experiments, shall we say. His ability could also heal his allies as well, and as an added benefit, he was even able to restore most of their stamina, which was pretty cool. Unfortunately, his uncle Tannin started abusing the shit out of this ability when training the younglings, causing many of them to shudder. Regrettably, it seems that his flame could not restore his own stamina, which, while not exactly a big deal, was a real letdown. Another noteworthy flame that Issei managed to learn was what he called purgatory flames, or the flames of hell as some people would call it, with good reason. This black flame, in contrast to the other flames, would not go out until it reduced its target to ash, or unless its user puts it out himself. Issei was even able to learn the antithesis of this flame, which is holy fire. This white flame was extremely effective against evil-aligned beings, and according to Tannin would also be able to exorcise evil spirits and the like, although he was not able to test this theory due to lack of spirits. Maybe in the future, who knows? If you did not already guess, this flame is very similar to the Uchiha's Amaterasu ability, to give you guys an idea. This next flame is probably the most brutal out of all his ability, bar his crimson ones. It is a green flame that, once it makes contact with an enemy or even inanimate objects, not only weakens one's magic or power but sucks away the stamina and sometimes even the life force out of them, making it a very deadly weapon. Everyone called it the decaying flame. He once used it accidentally against his friends while sparring, instantly knocking them out and almost killing them, were it not for the fact that they were high-level dragons and the use of Issei's healing flames. That did not stop him, however, from crying his heart out while healing them, shouting I'm sorry," repeatedly. Thankfully, there were no deaths, but it did show how lethal this ability could be if used against weaker level opponents. Even his father seemed to feel a very tiny tick when coming into contact with the flame, illustrating how powerful it really was. Although it seemed to have absolutely no effect on his mother, which made sense. She was infinite and there is no way to decay infinity. Still, he decided that he had to be very careful when using this flame. It should only be used in the direst of circumstances or against very evil opponents. Another major downside to this flame is that it uses up the most energy and stamina out of all his other abilities, even more than his crimson flames, making it very difficult to use. His most powerful flame is by far the crimson flames that are a manifestation of his own powers. These flames were even capable of damaging his own father in battle, which is a huge accomplishment by itself. His father went ahead and nicknamed this flame Apocalypse Flame due to its massive destructive properties. Any attacks or abilities making contact with this flame was immediately reduced to nothing, and it seems that nothing, short of a being of extreme power, would be able to stand up to it. Even Tanin agreed that he would easily be destroyed by this power, which scared Issei quite a bit at how devastating his power really was. So far, the only people he knew that were strong enough to resist his power were his parents, but he had been told by Tanin that there existed powerful gods that could also potentially deal with his flame. The prime examples he gave were the gods of the Hindu pantheon, who were currently the strongest pantheon with the death of the god of the Bible. Shiva, the god of destruction, being the strongest of them all. When Issei asked how he would fare against such a god, Tanin told him something that sent chills down his entire being. He said that if he faced him, he would be obliterated by his power without so much as a sound, and even Issei would be taken down quite easily at his current level. Being a god who specializes in destruction, he would probably be able to even destroy his flames before they even made contact with him. Tanin even believes Shiva to be able to take on Great-red and not die, thus showing how powerful he really was. However, the power of his flames could easily match against a god, and thus should be very cautious when utilizing it. It should only be used as a last resort. There was also another drawback to his almighty ability. The issue being that he could only seem to use his flame when he was in his true state, meaning his dragon form. It's not that he couldn't use it in human form, but when he tested it, the crimson fire seemed to damage him, meaning his human form could not sustain the incredible power the flames possess, and thus ended up injuring himself. After mastering the element of fire, Issei decided to tackle a different element. Fire was his most compatible element. His second most compatible element turned out to be lightning, and he could not be any happier because his uncle Barakiel became his teacher alongside a high-level thunder dragon under Tanin. They both helped him develop his lightning to the best of their ability. As soon as they started, however, they discovered something extraordinary about Issei's lightning. Not only was his lightning completely black, but they discovered that it was extremely volatile and destructive compared to normal lightning. In fact, both Barakiel's holy lightning as well as the thunder dragon's lightning /thunder both instantly disintegrated when coming into contact with Issei's, even when they combined both their powers together, revealing how overwhelmingly powerful Issei's lightning really was. They had no idea how to proceed since they needed to be very careful, so they both called in Tanin to see what they could do. Tanin decided to postpone the training for the moment until they could further understand the properties of Issei's lightning. They already knew how powerful his flame was, and they wished to prevent any unfortunate accidents like before. At first, Issei performed a few tests. He even tested his black lightning against his arsenal of flames, and the results were astonishing. His lightning literally ripped through each fire, even the decaying flame, which is supposed to not only weakens one's magic when hit, but when making contact with an enemy's magic severely weakens it. Yet the lightning simply tore through it as if it was nothing. The level of destruction really surprised not only him but his uncle /Shishao Tanin, who was overseeing him as they both tried to understand the properties of his lightning. Unlike Barakiel's holy lightning that is controlled and precise, Issei's black lightning is more volatile and destructive as previously seen. A long time elapsed until they finally made a breakthrough, which came in the unlikely form of Ophis. While Issei was using his black lightning, Ophis came by to check up on him, only to remark how his lightning had similar properties to her own power, meaning that Issei's black lightning possesses the infinity of the Ouroboros dragon god. Issei and Tanin were very shocked, although if you look at the facts, it would make a lot of sense. Issei is the son of both dragon gods, and so far, they have only seen Great-red's manifestation appear in Issei's abilities such as his distortion ability or his mastery of different flames, yet there had been no indication of Ophis' influence until now. Furthermore, it would explain why Issei's decaying flame had no effect. If his lightning possessed the infinity property, then no matter how much it deteriorates, infinity is still infinity, therefore, rendered the effect useless. This was a major discovery. Ophis was very happy to see Issei tap into what is the manifestation of her power. This brought a smile on her face as she congratulated her son, who appreciated the praise and thanks her for it. Issei also wanted to test how powerful his lightning was compared to his strongest fire, the apocalypse flame, the embodiment of his own power, so he transformed into his dragon state and concentrated his power on both hands. On his right, the crimson flame that damaged even his father in battle. On the left, black lightning fueled by the aspect of his mother, infinity. He moved both powers together, and when they came together, Issei instantly realized one thing. Worst mistake ever. The moment both powers collided with one another, it caused a massive explosion of fire and lightning, generating a shockwave which could be felt throughout the dragon territory. If it wasn't for the constant barrier maintained through Great-red's power surrounding the entire territory, the entire underworld would have felt his power and would have prematurely revealed his existence to the world. Luckily, there were no casualties since Issei performed his little experiment above a lone mountain. Unluckily, for the mountain, it bore the full brunt of the impact from Issei's power being completely obliterated. That is no small feat, as the mountain itself stood tall at over 120 meters, illustrating the overwhelming power Issei possessed. Everyone who heard the blast immediately headed towards the scene, very worried over the devastation caused, including Tanin, Ophis and Great-red, who could tell from the power emitted that the one responsible for the blast was Issei, so they hurried to get there as quick as possible. Eventually, everyone arrived at the scene of the blast only to notice a deep crater at least 20 feet deep and as wide as the mountain that used to exist there. At the bottom lay Issei, covered in injuries caused by his own attack. Unfortunately, he took the full blast of the impact, inflicting many injuries on his person. However, thankfully, he was in his dragon form, mitigating much of the impact. If he had been in his human form, he would not have gotten away with only small-scale injuries. Both his hands might have been vaporized from the force of the collision. Despite that, he was very much in pain that everyone could hear him say "Uuk." Silence followed until one dragon suddenly chuckled, followed by another and another, then it turned into full-blown laughter. Everyone laughed their asses off at the sight, including Great-red, who was also shouting, "That's my boy," or "Way to go, Issei." Tanin simply facepalmed at his nephew's predicament. Borva, although finding the situation funny himself, immediately recomposed himself and went in the crater to help his rival and friend. Ophis was both worried for her son and angry at everyone else, save Tanin and Borva, glaring at them, causing her aura to flare out, which immediately shut them all up, including her husband. After treating her son's wounds, Tanin decided to ask Issei what happened, to which Issei answered to the best of his abilities. Regrettably, the only thing it accomplished was irritate Tanin even more, as he smacked Issei's head with his fist, calling him an idiot for doing something so reckless. He then made Issei promise him that he will never attempt a stunt like this unless he gets the authorization from either him or his parents. Issei nodded his head and vowed never to try this again without permission. The conversation ended there and everyone headed back to their home except for Issei, who had to sit there and listen to his mother's scolding. He turned to his father asking for a bit of help, but to his dismay, his father simply turned around and fled the scene, not wanting to be on the receiving end of his wife's. Another addition to arsenal is the gravity magic that he picked up during his training. He primarily used gravity magic as a means of training. For instance, he used it on himself during sparring against either Tannin or Great-red, making his entire body heavier, which served to strengthen him in the long run. Tannin, however, convinced him that it could also be used as a means of combat. However, that single moment can determine whether or not an attack hits, or against more advanced opponents, the difference between victory or defeat. This was proven when he first used it against Tannin, gaining a victory thanks to the restricted movement caused by his gravity magic. All in all, Issei had gained an arsenal of abilities, making him not only extremely powerful but also versatile, capable of adapting based on the situation at hand. Back to the present, recovering from his trip down memory lane, Issei was currently making his way to Kyo Academy. At first, he did not really want to go school or even need to, since his parents and Tannin could teach him everything he needed. However, Barakiel convinced him to go, saying that it would be good for him to get a basic education and experience the life of a student. Plus, he also added that it was Shuri's wish for him to go to school as well. When he said that, all opposition against going to school was silenced. If his aunt wanted him to experience the school life, then he would honor her memory by going. Unfortunately, he had no idea where his school was located, so he decided to ask for some directions. "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" he asked the lady of the flower shop. "Yes, son. How can I help you?" she answered. "Do you, by any chance, know the way to Kyo Academy? I just recently transferred there and I have no idea where it," he sheepishly asked while rubbing his head in embarrassment. This caused a small giggle out of the lady in front of him. "Of course, I know where it is. In fact, my son attends there. Luckily it is not very far from here. You just need to head down 3 streets and turn left. The gates to the school will be visible from there. If I am not mistaken, school should start in 15 minutes, so if you hurry, you should be able to make it on time," she explained, causing Issei to become further embarrassed that he was almost going to be late. "Thank you very much, ma'am," bowing in front her. "It's no problem, son. You have a good day and have fun," she said, leaving him a smile which he returned. "Have a nice day as well," he said, leaving in a hurry, hoping to make it in time. Seeing him leave, the lady sighed. What a nice young man. Matsuda could learn a thing or two about manners from him, she thought to herself. Her son would be more likable if he wasn't such a pervert, but alas, you can't have it all. After 10 minutes of brisk walking, Issei finally made his way to the front entrance of the school. Taking a deep breath, he took his first step into the halls, ready to begin a new chapter of his life. I could feel their energies the moment I walked into the building. "Devil's High," I mumbled, and it wasn't just 1 or 2 devil signatures I could sense, but many others as well. If I remember correctly, Taninoji-san said that there were 2 high-class devils in charge of overseeing the city of Kyo. Ryas Gremuri and Sina Saitri. So the 2 biggest signatures must be the high-class devils Ryas and Sina, while the rest of them must be their peerage members. I thought to myself. It shouldn't be surprising, considering that my father told me that this place was considered devil territory. Therefore, it should not be a surprising factor that devils would be living here as well. To my benefit, it would seem that they are not very strong. How do I know that? Very simple. One of the very first skills that Tannin and my dad pounded into me was the ability to determine one's strength based on their aura. Much can be learned from reading one's aura. You can tell a person's race, emotions, and, for high-level beings, it can help you sense your enemy's next move. For example, an increase in aura, however light, signals a potential attack from the enemy. That's how Tanin Shishao managed to beat me many times despite the fact that I became stronger than him. It is indeed a formidable ability that can be the deciding factor between victory and defeat. Anyways, this was how I was able to sense the devils as soon as I stepped foot inside the school. It is a bit strange to be attending a school with devils considering my past encounters with them, but Tanin assured me that both of them were among the few he knew that were decent devils. He met them when they were younger and being introduced by their siblings as the heir to their families, so I trust in his judgment. Anyways, one should not judge one's race simply due to the actions of a few miscreants. Just because some devils had done despicable things to him should automatically condemn the rest of the devil's race. If I did do so, then I would be no different than those assholes who persecuted my race due to seeing us as evil beings out of fear for our strength. In any case, while the devils currently attending school aren't strong, their siblings however are a different story entirely. Surzek's Gremory or Lucifer as he called now and Seraphal Leviathan previously Citri are two of the four leading figures of the underworld, and it is no secret that both have a massive sister complex. They would both go to war against anyone who dares lay a finger on them, and Tanin warned him that they are both very powerful. Especially Surzek's, who is considered an abnormality amongst devils. Some say he is a god wearing the skin of a devil. That's how powerful he is, and even Tanin admitted to him years ago that Surzek's is definitely stronger than him. Should it come to a fight, Shishao assured me that all of them would take his side. My parents would also join in, which would obviously be overkill. As happy as that made me, it is the last thing I want to happen, as it would undermine all of the hard work my uncle did to bring back our species from the brink of extinction. If a fight were to happen, all it would do is bring unnecessary contempt towards our race, and even if we won, many of the younglings, my friends, would die. Simply the image sends a shiver down my spine. I will never lose someone close to me ever again. That is the reason why I went through such brutal training in the first place. I will simply lay low and avoid the devils as best as I can. I am here to obtain an education because that is what Auntie Shuri wanted for me, and I will not put it to waste. Unfortunately, it seems reality hate me because in order to get my schedule, I needed to present myself to the student council president, and lo and behold, it brings me straight to the devils I was told to avoid. Ha, why me, I thought to myself. It couldn't be helped. I just had to hope they are not able to sense what I am. I also learned to conceal my presence and suppress my aura during my training. In order to lay low, it is invaluable ability, so I had to learn it. Funny thing is, it took me a long time to be able to master it, and when I did, I thought that I was hot shit until Tanin revealed that almost everyone in the supernatural world is able to this, especially higher class beings. It made sense, otherwise the entire human race would have learned long ago that they are not alone in this world, causing widespread panic or in the worst case a war between humanity and the supernatural, which is something no one needed. Anyways, it was time to meet my maker, as they say, and hope nothing goes wrong. Knock knock, come in. I heard a voice say from behind the door, so I opened and entered the room. Good morning, my name is Issei and I am a new transfer student. I've been told to come here in order to receive my schedule. In front of me was a young bespectacled woman with a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes. This must be Sina Citri, one of the two high-class devils Tanin Shishao warned me about. She seemed to be working on a few documents related to the school. It seems she takes her work very seriously. I did not expect that. It was then that she redirected her attention towards me. Greetings, Issei. My name is Sina Shitrai and I am the current student council president of the school. On my right is Tsubaki Shinra and she is my vice president, she said, pointing to another young bespectacled woman with long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs and light brown eyes. She was calmly standing right behind Sina with a serious expression, but if you paid very close attention, one could see that she was in a position to defend her king should the need arise. Of course, I was not going to instigate anything. I have your schedule right here. You are in class 2 a.m. and the teacher has already been notified of your arrival. Class has already started, but since this is your first day, you will be excused for being late. She said, waking Issei up from his monologue while taking a piece of paper containing his schedule and handing it over to him. Here is your schedule and everything pertaining to your education is listed there. I hope you have a nice day, Issei Hiauda. Thank you very much, Sanakai-chao. I will be heading right away to class then. Have a nice day, Sanakai-chao, Shinra-senpai, he said, bowing slightly in order to be as respectful as possible, and exited the room. When Issei left the room, Sina looked towards her queen. What did you think about him? He is definitely not normal. Disregarding his lack of aura, my gut is telling me that he is not a normal human. She answered truthfully, which gained a nod from Sina, sharing her sentiment. Same here. Issei Hiauda is indeed very strong. Although he may have been trying to hide it, it felt as if I was stuck in a room with a predator. Sina calmly stated. What should we do, Kai-chao? Asked Shinra. Sina folded her hands under her chin and thought about it before replying. For now, there is no need to do anything. From what I see, he did not come bearing hostile intentions, otherwise he would have done something by now. In addition, we do not know anything about his capabilities and I will not risk your lives on a futile endeavor. She explained, but are we really supposed to do nothing? How about contacting Seraph-sama? I have no doubt she would help us. Asked a worried Shinra, but was immediately rebuked by her king. No. If we contact my sister, there is little doubt that she will intervene, but you know as well as I do that she tends to blow things out of proportion when my safety comes into play. We must take care of this by ourselves. Rias and I are in charge of this territory and it is our responsibility to keep it safe. If I need to ask for my sister's help every time something came up, then my dream will always remain a dream. I do not want to give those old farts of a council even more reasons to deny me my goals. She said the last with more emotions, letting go of her usual calm demeanor. Shinra nodded, sadly understanding what her king meant. Recomposing herself, Sina continued, in any case, as we have no idea of his intentions here, we will only contact my sister as a last resort should we discover that he means ill will to the people of this city. For now, you can continue working on your duties. I will inform Rias No of the situation. Very well, Kai-chao. Shinra nodded and left the room. Left alone in her office, Sina sighed and once again grabbed Issei's profile, staring at his picture. Issei Hiauda. Just who are you? She wondered. The man in question was making his way towards his class. Thinking back on his interactions with the devils, I think it went all right, although it does seem that they were on guard against me, I thought to myself. I could tell from their expressions that they were weary of me, but luckily, they did not decide to automatically attack him. It would have ended badly for them. Still, the point for coming here is to receive an education, just as Auntie Shuri wanted, and causing trouble with the devils will not allow me to do that, so for now it would seem that everything is fine, hopefully. I finally made my way to the entrance of my class. Knock knock. I knocked on the door and the teacher opened it. Hello, I'm the new transfer student, Issei Hiauda. He introduced himself. Ah yes, I've been expecting you, Hiauda-san. Please come in and I will introduce you to the class. As this is your first day, you will be excused for being late, but in the future, please do take care to arrive on time. The teacher said, which got a nod from Issei as they both entered class. As soon as he entered class, he could hear everyone talking about him thanks to his enhanced hearing, even though they were all murmuring quietly. Oh my God! Is he a new student? He is so hot. I can practically visualize his muscles through his clothes. I hope he is single. A new prince. I wouldn't mind doing anything he asks me to. The girls were singing praises about him while some were actually drooling over his body. The boys, however, were singing a different tune. Oh no, not another one. Holy shit, look at how ripped he is. I sure wouldn't want to mess with him. It's not fair. He simply sighed as he made his way to the center of class. All right students, as you can see we have a new transfer student among us. His name is Issei and I hope you will all get along with him nicely and make him feel welcomed. That would honestly not be a problem amongst the girls. All right class, if you have any question for your new classmate, now is the time to ask. Many hands, mostly the girls, were raised after the teacher's suggestion, so Issei pointed one of the girls who stood from her seat. What made you come to Japan? She asked. Well, I used to live here 8 years ago, but circumstances forced me and my family to move away. However, now that everything is fine, we decided to move back here so that I may receive an education. He answered, then pointed to another student. What are your hobbies? Issei rubbed his chin, thinking for an answer because saying flying with dragons would not exactly paint him in a bright image, so he improvised. I would say that I like to train, practice martial arts, reading and hanging out with friends, I guess. That answers why he was so ripped, but it also piqued the curiosity of other students. Have you ever tried studying in swordsmanship like kendo, for instance? Asked a pink-haired girl. That question got most of the girls' attention since most of them belonged to the kendo club and they would love for him to join. Unfortunately, the answer they got was not the one they wanted. I'm afraid not. My style is mostly centered around using my fists and I do not think I would be any good with a sword. He answered, then pointed to another girl. Are you single? She curiously asked. What she didn't know is that the question unknowingly caused a pang of agony because it reminded him of someone he lost, but he was still able to suppress his emotions and answer the question. Yes, I am single, but at the moment I am not looking to enter a relationship, he said, breaking the hearts of many women in the room while cheering up the boys in the room. One of the boys suddenly stood up and asked, which part of the female body do you prefer, breasts or butts? What? Was the only response that came out of a surprised Issei, who had no idea how to answer that question, even causing him to blush a bit, which the girls found adorable. Luckily, he was saved by the interference of the teacher Motoyama. Please refrain from asking such immoral questions, and Hiauda, you do not need to answer such a question. That will be all for the welcoming questions. Showing his appreciation with a slight nod, Issei then headed towards his seat and the teacher resumed class. The rest of the day went by swimmingly and the lessons were not too hard to grasp. Although my introduction could have gone a bit better, it was not even the craziest part of the day. During lunch, I had practically every club trying to recruit me, even though I wasn't planning on joining any. It got so bad that I had to run away from that crazy mob of students. It was the first time I've ever seen humans as scary. Luckily, they gave up by the end of the day, so I packed my things and got ready to leave for home. As I was leaving, however, I could feel a pair of eyes looking over me as I was leaving. I could tell that it was the two devils, Ryas Gremuri and Sinasitri. I do not know what they want, but for now, it is better to ignore them and leave them be. Up on the second floor, looking outside the window, were the two devils in question surveying Issei. So that is the boy you mentioned, Issei Hyouda, I presume, asked a crimson-haired beauty as her eyes followed the retreating Issei. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, he is a total mystery, answered Sana with a stoic expression. Rias raised a brow as she turned her attention to her friend. You could not find any information on him. Sana shakes her head. On the contrary, I've found quite a bit of information. Parents, date of birth, where he went to school, places he's been, and so on. Everything points to him being a normal person, but my gut is telling that he is anything but normal. Being in the room with him felt as if I was trapped in there with a predator, and he is definitely stronger than he appears to be. What Sana does not realize is that all the information she found was created by Great-red in order to blend in more naturally. Do you know if he plans to cause any trouble? This territory was placed under her and Sana's care, and she would be damned if she let anybody create issues here. Based on our previous conversation and investigation, I do not think he is here with malicious intent. If he wanted to cause trouble, he would have already done it long ago, but instead he is attending our school. He's been here for several weeks and has not caused any trouble since. However, we should not let our guard down and try to figure out what he is up to. Sana explained, making Rias nod in understanding. I see. In any case, I was planning on sending Koneko-chan to keep an eye on him. With any luck, she might be able to determine who, or better yet what he is, said Rias. Very well, but please be careful. I need to get back to my duties, but if you need help, just let me know and I will aid you to the best of my abilities. Rias thanked her friend, who proceeded to take her leave. Rias then made her way towards the old school building where her club room resides in. There she found her rook, Koneko, eating a few sweets. Koneko Tuya is a petite girl with white hair and gold eyes. The front of her hair has two long bangs going past her shoulders and several loose bangs hanging over her forehead, while the back has a short bob cut. She also wears a black cat-shaped hair clip on both sides of her hair. Koneko-chan. Hi, Rias Bachao. Koneko redirected her attention to her king. I need you to follow Issei Hyouda and, if possible, find out what he is. You have the best senses out of all of us, so I can only rely on you for this task. However, be very careful when tailing him. He is a complete mystery to us, so if you feel he is on to you, then you are to withdraw immediately and report to me. I do not want you to needlessly risk your life on such a thing, she said with concern over her servant's well-being. Very well, Bachao. I will get to it immediately, she said while nodding, and left the premises to follow her target. Ara, where is our little Koneko-chan running off to? Rias turned her attention to the new arrival. She was a beautiful young woman with a voluptuous figure that matches Rias' figure, very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs, with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backward, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. I sent her to keep an eye on a potential troublemaker that Sana warned me about, Akeno. The unknown voice now revealed to be none other than Akeno herself, who grew up to be a beautiful woman. Oh, is that so? I wouldn't mind having a little fun. I have a new technique I was dying to test out, Yufufu, she said in a sadistic tone, making Rias sigh, knowing her queen's sadistic nature. Hopefully, it does not come to that. Anyways, did you prepare the chessboard? Yes, I have, and I also prepared a new blend of tea. I hope you'll like it. Surprise, Akeno's alive. Of course everyone knew this already, lol, tongue-poking smiley, strolling along the streets, Issei was making his way back home after a long day at school. Or, at least, that was the plan if it weren't for his little tracker following him since he left the school. Well, so much for not drawing attention, Issei thought to himself with a sigh of defeat. He was trying to lay low and avoid the devils as much as he could, yet it seems fate had other plans for him. As far as he could tell, he did not do anything that would lead to exposure, so either he underestimated the devil's ability or they did for every new student, which makes no sense. Oh well, let's see if I can shake her off, thought Issei as he made his way into a more crowded place. He shifted between places, from the shopping mall to the bookshop. He also went in the arcade, and yet he could still feel the same devil signature following him, which honestly impressed him a great deal. She was able to follow him in crowded places despite the fact that he was concealing his presence, which was very hard to do. This meant that she must be exceptionally talented at tracking people. Impressive. It seems that there is no way to shake her off. Well, time for plan B. It seems leaving the arcade, he walked forwards until he made a right turn towards the pathway that leads to the park. Seeing that she lost sight of her target, Koneko slowly picked up the pace but still remained a good distance from him. Making the same right turn, she was shocked when she saw that Issei had disappeared. She did not understand what was going on. Thud. She heard something land right behind her and turned her head backwards, only to be face to face with Issei, who had his arms crossed, annoyed at being followed. "Why are you following me?" glared Issei. Koneko took a step back and looked up at the towering giant. She could not believe that she was discovered despite how careful she was tailing him. There was no indication that showed that he was on to her, so the only reason she could think of was that he had amazing senses just like hers. Her instincts were going haywire, warning her to get away from this dangerous entity. She could see why Rias and Sina were very careful with matters concerning him. "I'm not following you," she tried to play dumb, hoping beyond hope that he would buy it. It didn't work. "Please don't lie to me. You have been following me since the moment I stepped out of school." Issei gave her the answer she was dreading. She could feel his annoyance exuding out from his body as his aura slowly increased around him. "How?" was the only word that came of her mouth. He spoke again after a short pause. "You were hiding pretty good there. I could barely sense your presence when you were following me, which is really impressive, by the way. Unfortunately, I am very good at sensing people around me, and I could feel your gaze as you tailed. Plus, it wasn't that hard to figure out considering that you were the only devil signature in a crowd of normal people. You should take heed to be careful next time." He warned her before getting to the question he really wanted to ask. "Did your master have you follow me around?" The girl did not respond. She merely kept her stoic expression untouched and remained silent. But deep down, she was frightened. He even knew that she was a devil, which really shocked her. Unfortunately, Issei noticed her trembling slightly, indicating her fear of him. Sighing, he reined in his aura back into himself, hoping to ease her. Seeing her take a breath and her body relax showed that it worked. Sigh. "Look, I am not here to cause any harm to any devils or the people in this city. I am simply trying to receive an education just like any other students. As long as you do not perform any malicious act against me, I swear to you that I will not cause you any trouble. Can you please pass along this message to your king?" He smiled at her, hoping to express his sincerity, although her stoic expression made it hard to see if it worked, but after a moment's pause, she nodded her head positively. "Thank you." He then placed a hand in his pocket rummaging to get something, causing Koneko to put her guard up, thinking he was planning to do something, only to be surprised when he took out a piece of chocolate. "Think of this as a small peace offering to show my sincerity," he said, placing the sweet in front of her. "How did?" she said before being interrupted by Issei's giggle. "It wasn't hard to recognize you considering all the talk I hear at school. The mascot of the academy, I believe they all called you, Tuya Koneko. They also talked about your love of sweets, which is how I knew. Before you ask, I did not buy these specifically for you. I bought them for me, but I prefer to give it away as a gesture of goodwill if it will let us start on the right foot." Koneko hesitated a bit before Issei simply shrugged. "Well, if you don't want it, I guess I'll eat it myself." But before he could pull back in the blink of an eye, Koneko swiftly took the chocolate for herself and started munching on it. Issei almost laughed at the scene. She reminded him of a miniature version of his mother when it came to sweets. Issei waited until she finished eating the chocolate before deciding to part ways. "It is getting a bit late, so I will be taking my leave. Please believe me when I say that I mean no harm to anyone, and I hope you can relay that to your king," he said before extending his hand with a smile to the small devil. "It's been a pleasure to make your acquaintance, even though it wasn't in the best circumstance," he said, causing her to reveal a brief smile before shaking Issei's hand. Once they separated, they parted ways. Koneko had to return to Rias to explain the situation and relay his message. Although her assignment did not go as planned, it did reveal that Issei knew of the supernatural world, and based on what she sensed, he was definitely not human. Seeing her leave in the direction of the academy, Issei sighed before turning in the opposite direction and headed home. He had no doubt that the devils will want to speak to him, most likely to find out what he is, but for the moment, it had been a long day and he just wanted to get back home and rest. After a few minutes of walking, he finally made his way home. "I'm home," he said as he entered his house. He could spot his mother cooking dinner in the kitchen. She immediately turned around to greet her son with a warm smile. "Welcome home, Issei. Dinner is almost ready. It should be ready in about 15 to 20 minutes. How was your first day at school?" she asked excitingly. Issei looked around. It was an interesting day. "Where is Dad?" "Your father is taking care of a few things back with Tanin, but he should be back any minute now." "Why? Did something happen?" she asked with a tinge of worry. "Sigh, yeah, you could say that," he said before sensing a magic circle. Issei turned and saw a familiar figure appear when the magic circle died out. It was his dad. "Hey son, how was your first day at school?" he asked his son, ruffling the top of his head. Slowly removing his father's hand from his head, he turned his attention towards his father. "Like I told Mom, it was an interesting day overall, but something did happen," he said, this time looking towards both his parents. His father's expression then turned serious. "What happened?" Issei then proceeded to explain everything that occurred, especially his little meeting and conversation with Koneko Tuya. "I told that I am only here to receive an education and not hurt anyone. I think I managed to get her to believe me, so I believe that she will relay my message to her king, but it is safe to say that the devils are trying to dig up information about me," he finished explaining as his father and mother were both taking in everything he said. "I see. Well, we knew it was only a matter of time before they got curious, but I didn't expect it would be this soon. Maybe they are still being extra cautious due to the incident so many years ago," Great-red speculated as he rubbed his chin. "Based on your meeting, it is safe to assume that the devils are aware that you are not human, which means you have to be extra careful when dealing with them," added Ophis. "No doubt the devils will approach Issei for answers now that they know he isn't human. I believe it is fine for you to reveal the truth with matters regarding your identity in order to satisfy their curiosity. If asked about your origins, just say that you were born to high-class dragons who lived in seclusion amongst the humans, which is honestly not that far from the truth. Just don't reveal that you are the son of dragon gods, or I can guarantee that this will be the least of our worries." Issei nodded, effectively ending their conversation just in time as the food was ready. Meanwhile, Koneko arrived back to school around the same time Issei arrived home. She made her way towards the old school building where she knew her king would be waiting. She walked upstairs and eventually arrived at the entrance of their club room. Knock knock, she knocked the door. "Come in," she heard her king say as she entered the room. She could see that Rias was alone in front her desk. Most likely she sent everyone else home while waiting for her. Rias looked at her and greeted her with a charming smile. "Welcome back, Koneko-chan. Were you able to learn anything new about Issei Hyuga?" she asked, getting straight to the point. "Hi, I did, Butchow. From what I can tell, although I could not pinpoint what race he is, my instincts keep telling that he isn't human," Koneko stated before pausing, letting her king understand things. At least, this got confirmation of what she and Sana suspected, so at the very least it was worthwhile news. Unfortunately, Koneko wasn't finished. However, there was a slight complication, Butchow. Rias tilted her head in confusion, indirectly asking her what it was. She took a breath before proceeding. "Apparently he was aware of me following and confronted me," she revealed. Rias went wide-eyed with worry, looking over her rook from head to toe. "Oh no. Are you all right? Did he do anything to you? I swear on Satan's name that if he harmed you, I will make him rue the day he was ever born," she howled in anger, but was quickly calmed down by Koneko, who shook her head negatively. "No, he did not hurt me. After confronting me, he asked me to relay a message to you that he does not bear any malicious intent to anyone here, whether devil or human, and that he only came to receive an education." I could tell that he wasn't lying, Butchow, she explained to Rias, who breathed a sigh of relief that her precious servant was not harmed. Based on what she was told, if he really wanted to harm her, he could have done so, but instead he confronted her and let her walk away. At the very least, she decided to give him the benefit of the doubt. "Very well. Although it did not go as I expected, we still learned quite a bit about the boy. Unfortunately, I am not about to trust someone I never met, so tomorrow I will have Kiba-kun and Matsuda-kun bring him to me for an introduction. I will determine for myself whether or not he is a threat to the safety of everyone here. Anyways, great work, Koneko-chan. Go back home and get some rest," she told Koneko, who nodded and took her leave. Rias sighed one last time and decided to head home as well to prepare for the inevitable meeting tomorrow with her new kuhai. The next day came by very quickly and ended just as fast, and the time Issei dreaded came upon him. As lessons for the day ended, Issei was getting ready to go home until the blonde devil boy had entered Issei's sight. With an invisible side, Issei mentally prepared himself, knowing that the devils would come, but why did it have to be today of all days? The blonde put up his hand to shake Issei's and offered a smile. Shaking hands, the two exchanged proper greetings. "Hello, my name is Kiba Yuato," he spoke. "I'm Hyuga Issei. It's a pleasure to meet you." Issei returned the polite greeting. "Hyuga-kun, I was wondering if you were busy at present?" Kiba asked calmly. "I'm not," Is there something that I can help you with? Issei was pretty sure he knew what this was about but still decided to ask. Well, I'm a part of the Occult Research Club and my club president wanted to speak with you. Would you be willing to come along? Kiba asked politely. Issei knew that this would happen sooner or later considering that Rias had sent Tuya Koneko after him and most likely Tuya-san revealed their conversation, so it was inevitable. Issei could sense that Kiba meant no ill will towards him, so it would seem the princess simply wished to talk to him. All right. I'd be happy to. Matsuda-kan, you can come as well. Bachao wants us all there. Kiba spoke, making Matsuda raise from his seat. All right, I'm coming. See you later, Motoama-san. He said to the bespectacled man who seemed to be raging internally. I still cannot believe you were invited to join the Occult Research Club. It's not fair, you lucky bastard, asked a frenzied Motoama, causing Matsuda to laugh. Ha ha, don't worry. I'm sure your time will come eventually. By the way, I'll return the magazine you lent me tomorrow. He patted his friend's back, which only enraged him more, but before he could spat out his insults, Matsuda left with Kiba and Issei. Issei got up and followed the Prince of Kyo Academy to the old school building and was led up to the room where a certain crimson-haired girl awaited. Knocking on the door and opening it, Issei wasn't exactly surprised that he would encounter Rias Gremory. Welcome. Please come in. The club president spoke politely with a gentle and relaxed tone. Kiba took his place near the window while Matsuda sat on the couch near Koneko, the girl who followed him before. He could also sense the presence of another devil in a different room. Although its presence was a bit different compared to the others, he decided to ignore it for now. Now that Issei got a good look at her, he could see that she matched the description Tanin gave about her. A young beautiful woman with white skin, blue eyes, but her most distinctive feature was no doubt her long crimson hair. However, that is not the only thing that grabbed his attention. She had a buxom figure that would be cause fantasies for most men, and she also had the biggest breasts on campus by far, causing him to blush slightly as he tried to redirect his gaze elsewhere. That was not missed by Rias, who simply giggled at his reaction, since this was not the first time someone reacted as such. Issei quickly recomposed himself and asked, "Thank you for inviting me. May I ask what you want from me?" Issei half expected to receive accusation glares of suspicion from everyone in the room, considering the fact that his conversation with the little kitty was most likely revealed, but he only received looks of indifference. First, I would like to thank you for coming, Issei Hyauda. My name is Rias Gremory and I believe you've already met my rook Koneko Tuya. She pointed towards the little white-haired girl who waved her hand to greet him, earning him a smile in return from Issei with a nod of his head. I'll get straight to the point. I know that you know that we are devils. All of them revealed their bat-like wings to prove the point before continuing, and I am well aware of the fact that you are not human. I've heard your conversation with Koneko-chan and I decided to give you the benefit of the doubt and bring you here. So, I will ask you, and if you really meant what you said to my rook, then I hope you will answer truthfully when I ask you, what are you? Issei decided that beating around the bush was useless. His parents already gave him permission to reveal what he was, as long as he did not reveal the more important details. As long as he sates her curiosity, everything should be fine. Very well. As you already know, my name is Issei Hyauda and I am a dragon, Issei answered as he spawned two crimson scaly wings from his back. Those wings made him seem bigger than he actually was, even though he was already bigger than any of them, which was scary. Everyone was surprised at this revelation. None of them expected to have a dragon of all things joining their school. Rias was the most surprised. At worst, She expected him to be a yokai but not a dragon. A dragon? Seriously? Well, this certainly complicates things. Rias knew that most dragons did not involve themselves with any factions save for a few like Yulong, who journeyed everywhere with the original Sun Wukong, or Tanin, who became a devil to save his people from extinction. Can you tell me who your parents are and what exactly are you doing here? She was curious to find out as much as possible about him. With any luck, if I wasn't lying when I said that I came to this town to receive an education. I used to live here during my childhood, but circumstances forced me and my family to move away, and we only returned recently. Rias raised a brow, curious what he meant. What circumstances would those be? Issei shook his head negatively. I'm very sorry, but that is very personal, so no offense. But I won't tell you, Issei vehemently declared to her, and although it annoyed her, she could understand that had the rights to his own privacy and he didn't trust them enough to tell them that. Anyways, force was never the best way to go about things, so she decided to drop the matter. She got what she was after and found out what he was, so she didn't need to force the issue and make an enemy out of this man. If anything, she would love to have him as an ally, and with any luck she might convince him to join her peerage. A being of his strength would be invaluable to her. No offense taken. Very well, then. However, let me clear on one issue. If you cause any trouble in my territory, there will be consequences. This place is under my protection and I will not tolerate any violent acts against the citizens here, and this goes double for the other devils who live here. Remember that. Rias ended her talk with him on that note. Issei nodded. I understand. If that will be all, then I will take my leave then. I have a few things to take care of. It's been a pleasure to make your acquaintance, Rias Gremory, he said, bowing his head as a sign of respect before leaving the clubroom and eventually the school. Several minutes later, a certain black-haired young lady came out of a doorway that led into a different room, presumably a small kitchen, given how she came out with a tray of tea. Ara. Did your guest leave already, Bachao? Akeno looked around and found that the guest that Rias had been waiting for was gone. Unfortunately, he did. Anyways, what did the rest of you think about him? She asked the rest of her peerage. I believe he is pretty friendly. I think we would get along just fine, began Kiba with his usual smile. I think so too. If he was evil, he would have taken me down the instant he figured out I was following him, but instead he confronted me and gave me chocolate. Koneko gave her own stance on the subject. I don't know if I like the guy, Matsuda said, being the only one to offer a negative reply. And why is that, Matsuda-kun asked Rias, wanting to understand her pawn's reasoning. Because he is like a second Kiba except on goddamned steroids. He just came yesterday and already all the girls are fangirling over him, calling him their second prince or something. He is stealing all of the girls. On top of that, he is a dragon. Some people have it all. It's not fair, whined Matsuda. Rias face palmed at her pawn's answer, forgetting of his perverted tendencies. Pervert, said Koneko with her usual stoic expression. Akeno decided to enter the conversation. Ara, a dragon, here. I did not expect that. What is this person's name, she asked. Rias turned her attention towards her queen to answer. Oh right, I forgot you weren't told who we were dealing with. Anyways, his name is Issei Hyauda and he is the newest transfer student that. Unfortunately, she was interrupted by the sound of a tray dropping. The tray Akeno was holding had clattered loudly to the floor as Akeno's eyes widened in shock. Issei's here anger, pain, sorrow, and relief all boiled to a rise in Akeno's heart. Memories of her past started resurfacing all at once. From the times they spent together, the time he protected her against the stray devils even at the cost of his well-being, to the day she somehow survived the blast. Throughout the years, she journeyed throughout Japan using her skills to purify evil spirits that she learned from her mother in order to survive, doing so for a year and a half. When she stumbled into a certain town, Akeno indirectly saved a human that was contracted with a devil from the Gremory clan. Fearing that the devils would kill her due to her fallen angel heritage and due to her previous encounters with them, Akeno decided to hide from them. Unfortunately, she had wandered into the territory of the HAREMr clan, who were still after her life and the life of her father. She could recall the events as if it were yesterday. She remembered how she was about to be killed until she was saved by Rias and Agrippa, who was showing the young heiress around the territory she would be inheriting. After much negotiation, Akeno was allowed to be free in exchange for never entering HAREMr territory and second, to always stay with Rias. Luckily, she was allowed to keep her mother's family name of HAREMr. In time, when Rias received her evil pieces, she accepted her offer at becoming her very first servant as her queen. She never regretted that choice because she considered Rias not only as her best friend but also as family, and it only grew with the addition of Koneko, Kiba and eventually Matsuda. However, while she was eternally grateful to the Gremory clan, Akeno couldn't help but imagine what it could have been like if she had lived with Issei. When she thought about it, only bitterness and anger came to mind. How many days did she wish to wake up the next morning and find Issei coming to her rescue? Lamentably, her wishes were always shattered the next day when she woke up and found herself alone and afraid. These were many questions that Akeno would never stop asking when she was younger. Had her supposed best friend forgotten all about her and continued to live on his life? She had grown bitter and angry when nobody from her past had come to save her, nor did it seem like anyone was searching for her. She had learned how to fight from a young age and was always able to sense presences. During her time spent wandering, she never once felt Issei's presence in Japan. Unfortunately, she did not know that he and his parents moved to Tanin's territory for safety. She remembered the times Issei told her how important she was to him. Was everything he told her a lie? Did he also hate her because of her black wings? Is that why he never came to look for her? Her grief and anguish slowly twisted her thoughts about her lifelong friend until it resulted in feelings of hatred towards the very man she came to love. The very same feeling she held for her father, whom she believed to be the cause of all this pain. Love and hate are two sides of the same coin, which is why it is sometimes more likely to hate someone you love than hating someone you don't, especially when you feel betrayed by that person. She could not understand why Issei had given up on her after everything they had been through. Now, in present time, she finally had the opportunity to find out from the man himself after all these years. There was so much that she had wanted to say to Issei, specifically. For years she had withheld her bitterness, and now, she could finally get the burning, itching, and unbearable pain of words off of her chest. Unlike her father, who Akeno wanted to avoid, she wanted to confront the Issei. The other members were very stunned by how upset Akeno looked. Of course, they were unaware of her past with Issei because she had never mentioned it. "Akeno, what's wrong?" asked a worried Rias, but it seemed like Akeno was in her own world and did not respond. "Issei," she muttered under her breath before she bolted out of the doorway, deciding to find him. She was gone within the blink of an eye. "Holy crap, I've never seen Fukubacho like this," said a startled Matsuda. His sentiment was also mirrored by the little white-haired girl next to him. "Akeno, wait. Rias tried to go after her friend only to be stopped by Kiba. Please wait Bachao. This seems to be personal for Akeno Fuku Bachao. There is a chance that she has encountered this person before. Kiba presumed based on her reaction to Issei being here. But shouldn't we go to make sure nothing goes awry? You saw how upset she was. Isn't there a small chance that she may attack him for something he did? Asked a worried Matsuda as he stood up from the couch. No, Akeno is not that irresponsible no matter what her emotional state is. She is my queen and I have the utmost confidence that she wouldn't do something like that. Rias immediately rejected that notion although it did not stop her from worrying about her queen. A red gauntlet suddenly materialized over Matsuda's right arm and a strong voice could be heard from within. I hope what you say is true. From what I can sense, that dragon is extremely powerful and you all stand no chance against him. Said Drake, causing everyone a small tinge of fear although Matsuda was also a bit peeved. Geez, thanks for the vote of confidence Drake. Drake snorted in response, I am simply stating the facts partner, although I'm sure you all already sensed his power and understand the truth of my words. No one could say anything to refute him since he was right. With a heavy sigh Rias said we just have to have faith in her. Hopefully, when she comes back, she will open up to us and explain what is going on. Everyone nodded and decided to believe in their friend. The person in question was scouring around the school trying to find Issei but with no success. Using a few spells to hide her presence, she began to search the city. In the shopping district, Issei made his way towards a familiar flower shop. Going in, he spotted the very same women who gave him directions to find his school just the other day. She also spotted him and came to greet him. Oh my, it's you. How are you doing today? I hope you made it in time for school. She asked Issei. I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking and thank you for helping me find my school. I wasn't able to make it on time but I was excused for being late due to it being my first day miss. I'm sorry I forgot to ask for your name. He said scratching the back of his head. This resulted in a small giggle from the shop lady. It is no problem son. My name is Julia Suzuki. She extended her arm which Issei shook. Suzuki, where have I heard that name before? Issei remembered having heard it somewhere until his mind clicked and remembered his meeting with the devils and she did say previously that her son attended the same school as him so it wasn't hard to connect the dots. It is a pleasure to meet you Miss Suzuki. By any chance, is your son's name Matsuda? He asked her and he got his answer in the form of a nod. Yes, he is. I take it, you met him at school? She asked excitingly. Yes, I have. I met him at his club. Plus, it was hard not to hear about him based on the rumors going around at school, he said, causing Julia to sigh knowing exactly what he was talking about. So I take it you heard how my son is the incarnation of lust alongside his other friend Motooma-san. It was Issei's turn to giggle at her statement. Amongst other things, but I do not judge people solely based on their interests. I judge them based on their character and actions, and so far, your son hasn't done anything to make me believe he is a bad person. Everyone is entitled the right to pursue whatever they want. Everyone is unique and each of us possesses certain virtues that makes us who we are. Your son's lust is but one part of who he is, so until I get to know him better, I will not judge him. Plus, he was raised by a wonderful woman like you, so there is no way he will not turn out great. He told her with as much sincerity as he could. Oh my, quite the charmer, aren't you? Thank you very much for that. You are right, and no matter what anyone thinks of him, He is my son and I will always love him no matter what kind person he turns out to be, and I know that there are people out there who accept my son for who he is, which I am eternally grateful for. It is also my hope that the two of you can become friends, she said with a smile, and he responded with one of his own. If we have a chance to get to know each other, I'm sure we can become friends. Thank you. Now, I'm pretty you did simply drop by to have this conversation, so, how can I help you today? She asked. I'm looking to buy some flowers today. Well, aren't you a romantic? Who's the special lady? She asked with a lot of enthusiasm, not knowing the circumstances. Although, she was technically not wrong because he was buying flowers for two very special ladies. They are for my aunt and her daughter who passed away years ago, he said, smiling sadly, causing Chalia to gasp, feeling really bad for what she said. Oh, my condolences, I did not mean to sound. Although she was interrupted by a small wave of Issei's hand. Please don't worry about. You could not have known, so it is of no trouble, he said, trying to reassure her, which seemed to work. Thank you. In that case, please take a look around, and when you made your choice, come to me and I will give you a discount. Please think of it as both a sign of gratitude and apology on my behalf, she said with an expression that told Issei that he was not going to convince her otherwise, so he thanked her for her generosity and went ahead to ponder his choices. Which flowers should I buy for them? He mused as he explored all his options. After much thought, he decided to buy white lilies and violets. After gathering the bouquet of flowers and waving goodbye at Chalia, Issei steeled himself as he made his to a place of deep remembrance. Unknown to him, Akeno managed to trace his signature, and after using her magic to hide her presence, she quickly followed pursuit as discreetly as she could to see where he was going. For as long as she can remember, she blamed her father for the tragedy that occurred to her mother as well as herself, but another part of her also blamed Issei, who she feels did not look for her during her years of wandering. She wanted to find out the truth. She followed him to the place she did not expect to see again, her previous home. Issei made his way up the stairs and entered the shrine until he stopped in front of two gravestones. He smiled when he saw that there were already flowers placed in front of the graves, meaning his parents and most likely his uncle had already visited to pay their respects. Ever since the shrine had been rebuilt by the fallen angels, his parents, mainly his mother, always came by and maintained the place as best as they could. For his mother, it was a way to stay connected to Shuri and remember all the times they spent together. She did all this, not only as a courtesy to her first friend but also out of guilt. Both she and Great-red felt that part of this tragedy was their fault. Had they accompanied Akeno's family back home themselves, none of this would have happened, and so, year after year, they kept apologizing in front of Shuri's and Akeno's grave sites, even though Barakiel kept telling them that it wasn't their fault. He could not say anything because he himself felt guilty for what happened. If he had made it just a little bit sooner, all of this could have been avoided. Of course, no one blamed him because he was a child at the time and it was the adults' responsibility to protect them, or at least that is what his parents told him. Laying out the two bouquets of flowers in front of their graves, Issei performed his prayers and began to talk to them as he did every year, not knowing that he had been followed by Akeno herself. Hello, Auntie Shuri. Akeno widened her eyes when she heard what Issei said. She could not believe that they had erected a grave for her mother. How have you been? In case you were wondering, I've been doing all right, and so have my parents, but I'm sure I did not need to tell you that, considering that they came by to visit you before I did. A long time has passed since you had been unfairly taken away from us. My parents and I moved away to Tannin's home, and I've spent the last 9 years training with everyone to become stronger so that something like this never happens again. It was so grueling that it felt as if I were in the worst pits of hell. He let a small giggle. Although I'm sure I don't need to tell you that. I still remember the time when you came by to visit one time during my training with my dad and reprimanded him for training me way too hard. I also haven't forgotten all of the lessons you taught me. From tables manner to the time you even taught me how to dance. All the times you spent teasing me and Akeno. All of the days we spent together as a family were the most memorable moments of my life, and I will always remember them. Issei spoke as if her spirit were right in front of him. As you know, we recently moved back to our old house here in Kyo. Although it hurts to walk in and out every day because this place reminds me of everyone I lost. Thankfully, I've had a lot of support over the years, and although I'm not sure what to expect from life, I'll do my best to move forward just like I vowed to you all those years ago. I also enrolled into Kyo Academy and getting an education just like you wished for me. Apparently, it is under the supervision of 2 heiresses, but Uncle Tannin promised me that they are not like the devils who attacked us, so you don't need to worry about me. I can take care of myself just fine. Besides, I met with the devils and they seemed nice. His tone suddenly turned somber. Uncle Barakiel is still as serious as ever, but, ever since you died, he has gotten a lot more sullen. He spent every day crying over you and Akeno, and there was nothing I or my parents could do to help him. He no longer laughs like he used to with my dad, and he no longer smiles. Even worse, due to his grief, he attempted suicide, and if it weren't for my dad, he would have succeeded. It broke my heart to see him like that, and even though we managed to stop him, he hasn't been the same since. I'm so sorry, Auntie, that we cannot help him find closure. Only you can. Issei put his hand on Shuri's gravestone and made a request with tears dropping from his face, unable to hold his sadness anymore. Please help Uncle Barakiel, Auntie. He is slowly becoming a machine. His words do not seem to hold much emotion anymore, so please, help him. Issei prayed to his aunt. Wiping away his tears, he moved towards the other grave. Akeno was wondering who they could have buried next to her mom. Akeno. He spoke glumly. Akeno gasped and widened her eyes in surprise at what she heard. This has been the least of her expectation. Did Issei think I died? Is that why he hasn't been looking for me? She thought to herself, now quickly paying the utmost attention to what he was saying. I miss you so very much. Not a single day goes by that I don't remember our days as children. I missed playing with you and I missed spending time with you. I still remember, to this very day, the moment you and Auntie Shuri were taken away from us. Everyone tried to search for you. When Uncle Barakiel and other fallen angels came to look at the shrine, they found nothing. The whole shrine got reduced to nothing. Even my parents secretly went in to search for you too, but with no success. Issei's voice shook, causing Akeno's heart to soften. I'm not sure if you remember, but today is my birthday. Quite the irony, is it not? A day meant for celebration and happiness has turned into one filled with nothing but misery and sadness. There are so many things I never got to tell you which I regret every single day. He paused, taking a moment to breathe before continuing. I never got the chance to express how much you mean to me. You were always there for me when we were kids. You may know this, but you saved me back when we first met. You were a ray of light shining at the end of the tunnel, piercing the darkness and saving me from a life of sorrow and loneliness. You accepted me as a friend when no one else would even take the time of day to look at me. I'm so pathetic. You've done so much for me, and I couldn't be there when you needed me the most. I never got to tell you how much I loved you. That is why I can never forgive myself for failing to protect you like I promised." Akeno gasped when she heard that. What? Issei loves me. Akeno's head started to spin as any feelings of anger within her quickly dissipated as her old romantic feelings for him suddenly surfaced upon seeing that they were reciprocated. However, watching Issei heave and cry was very heartbreaking. To see him blame himself over something that was beyond his control was not right. There are times when I can't help but think that what happened to you was my fault. Dragons are beings of power, and power attracts both allies and enemies towards us. I can't help but think that the only reason such misfortune hit you and your family was because you associated yourself with me. Akeno could tell that he was clearing, sobbing, further breaking her heart as he continued, "You did not deserve this, none of you did. Some part of me, sometimes wishes that you never met me in the first place. Perhaps then, you would still be together with your family. Auntie Shuri would still be alive and Uncle Barakiel wouldn't be grieving the loss of his family every day," he said, rubbing off his never-ending tears. His words had caused something in Akeno to finally snap. She couldn't help but cry as well when she heard the truth of his past and his feelings. For so many years, she thought that Issei and the others had merely forgot about her. Ever since the day her mother died, her mind had convinced her that people detested and mistreated her because of her half-human, half-fallen angel heritage. Almost immediately, any negative thoughts about Issei evaporated. It was surprising that it was so easy, but when Akeno sensed the truth and emotion in Issei's confessions, she was overridden by her heart. "Although my parents would murder me for saying this, if I could trade my life to give you back both of your lives so you could live happily with Uncle, then I would do so in a heartbeat. I would happily die so you and your mother could live again." This was the last straw for Akeno. Her heart could no longer bear to hear his self-destroying words anymore. "If you weren't in my life, then it would have been meaningless," she said, bursting out of her hiding place. Issei suddenly jolted at the sound of Akeno's voice and turned around to see her standing right in front of him. At first, he believed that he was simply hallucinating, that this was a result of his accumulating despair and regrets, wishing to see her once more. However, his senses suddenly came back online and his instincts told him that it was indeed the love of his life standing right in front of him. Her scent, her aura, her presence, everything about her points to the inevitable conclusion that he so desperately prayed for all his life, that she was alive and well. A shower of tears, that he was barely holding in, came tumbling down his face as he called out to her, still not processing that this is reality. "Akeno, is that really you?" he said weakly, still deeply afraid that this was all a hallucination and nothing more, but his worries were immediately relieved when she looked at him with the beautiful smile that made very single light in a room look dim and weak. "Yes, Issei, it's really me," she stated with some tears coming out from her as well. How? Issei was extremely shocked that he could barely speak properly. "I do not know how, but I survived the blast." At this point he did not care how, so, with a sudden burst of speed that she didn't know he had, he quickly embraced her into his chest. "Thank the heavens that you are alive." She could hear him crying on her shoulders as he continued, "Words can't even begin to describe how happy I am right now that you are okay. If this is in fact a dream, then I never want to wake up, even though it was not possible." He tightened even more Akeno into his embrace as if fearing that should he let her go, she will vanish once more from his life, and that is not something he would be able to handle. "This is not a dream, Issei. It really is me, and I am so happy to see you again, to hold you in my arms. I missed you so so much reassured Akeno as best as she could, emphasizing how happy she was to see him again. "I heard everything you said, Issei." This caused a massive blush to appear on Issei's face. He said so many things, and to think she was right beside him. If Tanin were here, he would both laugh his ass off and smack me for letting my guard down. Akeno stepped forward until she was face to face with Issei. She finally took noticed how much he grew since the last time she saw him. He is a lot taller than he once was, almost being a head bigger than her. He is also a lot more robust than he used to be, causing a blush to surface before recomposing herself, since this was not the time for that. "I don't blame you for anything anymore. It's true that I thought, at first, that you and everyone else abandoned me due to my fallen angel heritage, but after seeing your confession, I knew I was wrong. I now know the truth, Issei, and I don't blame you. I can't blame you for something that was clearly beyond your control, and now that I think about it with a clearer mind, my anger was misplaced. I guess I just needed an outlet, somebody to blame, or I was going to go insane from my mother's death. So, let me say this. I'm sorry for letting you suffer for so long. I was so bitter about everything that I started to hate all of you, but now I don't hold anything against you because it was not your fault, so please." She dug her head into Issei's chest, looking up to him with tearful eyes. "Please don't say that you want to die. It hurts to hear the man that I love say that. If you died, I'd want to die too. So please, for my sake and for my mother's, don't let go of life." Akeno confessed to Issei, who was stunned and flabbergasted. "You, what?" Issei could not believe what he just heard and needed to reconfirm it. He was afraid that his sorrow had affected his mind and he was simply hearing things. However, Akeno gladly repeated herself. "I love you, Issei." She then kissed him on the mouth. Surprised, Issei lost himself as he became entranced by the soothing passion that Akeno transmitted to him. He gave in to the kiss and returned it with as much passion as he could, embracing her with the same warmth she did with him. He even unfurled his fore-winged and enveloped the both of them in it. It was as if time itself had stopped for him, and all he could sense was Akeno. After a while they separated, still in bliss at the kiss they shared. "Can you please say your feelings to me, it one more time, Issei?" asked Akeno, earning Issei a smile as he lifted her chin so he could stare at her beautiful violet eyes he missed so very much. "I love you so much, Akeno. Now and until death do us part," he expressed with all his heart, earning a blush from Akeno. They then once again shared a kiss of timeless passion, cementing their love for one another. After sharing such a blissful experience with each other, they each slowly separated from their passionate kiss. Issei finally got to take a good look at Akeno and saw how much she really changed after all these years. The years have been very kind to her as she grew up to become a very elegant and beautiful woman. Her hair, long flowing black hair tied in a long ponytail, reached all the way down to her legs. She was the perfect definition of a Yamato Nadeshiko. She looked almost exactly like her late mother, but the biggest change he noticed was her voluptuous figure that would put even the most beautiful models to shame. He couldn't help but stare at her breasts, which were by far the biggest he had ever seen, even bigger than Rias. His cheeks quickly turned crimson as he tried to shift his focus somewhere else, not wanting to be disrespectful towards her. He was a bit perverted, especially when it came to breasts, but then again no one could blame him. Unfortunately, Akeno noticed where he was staring, but instead of reprimanding him, had the biggest smirk on her face, decided to tease him. "Ara, it seems that Issei-kun has a little perverted side," she said before folding her hands below her breasts to show them off. Do you like what you see? She added, making Issei's blush turn even redder. It seems she inherited more than just Auntie Shuri's looks, he thought before waving his hands, trying to come up with a denial, but all it did was make him look adorable in Akeno's eyes. At least part of his innocence did not change since they were kids, which she was very grateful for, otherwise she would not be able to tease him like this. It's not like that. I just thought you looked absolutely beautiful that it blew my mind away, he said honestly, which caught her completely by surprise, making her lose her composure and caused her to blush fiercely. "Ot, thank you Issei-kun," she stuttered, not prepared for Issei's praise but happy nonetheless. After calming down, it was then that Issei noticed another major change Akeno had gone through, and this one troubled him. "Akeno, did you become a devil?" he said, finally sensing her magical signature to be devil in nature. Unfortunately, his thoughts suddenly turned darker because he remembered that many devils forcefully reincarnated other people into devils, disregarding their opinion, and the thought of someone forcing Akeno into slavery was not something he would let anyone get away with, not after finally being reunited with her. The atmosphere suddenly became heavier as Issei's aura started spreading. Cracks started appearing on the ground as his anger began taking over. "Did that woman force you to become a devil? Because if you were forced to become a slave, I will never forgive them." His tone became a lot darker and his eyes turned back into slits towards the end of his answer. His initial perception about the devils he met at school started becoming twisted at the thought that they had forced Akeno, the girl he loved more than anything in the world, into becoming a slave against her free will. If they did, then they will pay. Before his anger escalated to dangerous levels, Akeno quickly intervened to correct this misunderstanding before the love of her life executed her new family. "Please wait, Issei. It's not what you think," she shouted as she tried to calm him down, taking his hand, overlapping it with hers. It seems to have worked since his aura started to recede, his anger going along with it as he stared into her eyes as if asking her what happened. Akeno sighed and shared her past with him. From the day of the incident, spending almost a decade wandering alone trying to survive, to the day where she met Rias, who saved her life from the members of her clan, and finally when she agreed to become her first piece, not only to repay her for what she did but as a sign of their friendship. Issei listened the whole time, and it broke his heart to hear what Akeno had to go through all by herself. He himself was torn apart when the incident occurred, however, he had his family to support him while Akeno had to go through all that alone. What made it even worse was the thought that while he was having fun back in Tanin's territory, Akeno spent all these years barely making ends meet, trying to survive all on her own. He embraced her once more. "I can't believe you had to go through all of that. I'm so sorry, Akeno, that I wasn't there for you. I swear, if we knew you were alive, no forces on earth or heaven would have stopped us from finding you," apologized Issei. Once more, he started sobbing, but Akeno had enough of seeing Issei cry over things that were beyond his control, interrupted him but still returned his embrace. "I know, Issei. I know that had you known I was alive, you would have done everything in your power to find me. Don't forget I heard you talking in front of our gravestones earlier, expressing how sorry you were. But please, stop blaming yourself over matters that you had no control over. I know I already said it, but I will continue to say it until you are able to forgive yourself. It wasn't your fault." And seeing the man I love berate himself over and over again to the point that he wished he could trade his own life for my happiness breaks my heart beyond measure. Stop rejecting yourself and move forward like you vowed to my mother. I know for a fact that she would also agree with me and would never blame you for this. She would no doubt berate you for hating yourself and smack you like back then, when we were kids. The last part caused both of them to giggle, being reminded the time Shuri would reprimand them for the smallest of things during their childhood. Akeno then refocused and continued, "Please do it, if not only for yourself but for me and my mother," she pleaded as she pressed his head into his chest with tears started falling off her face this time. Issei, not wanting to cause her any more sadness, smiled and lifted her chin so he could meet her eyes. "Very well. I promise you, Akeno, that I will try and do what you asked. It will probably take a long time, but I give you my word that I will do my best," he told her. A dragon's word is their bond. Once they gave their word, they never go back on it. That is what makes the dragon's race one of the most, if not the most honest, race in the world. But even if that were not the case, there is no way Issei could ever lie to Akeno. "Thank you, Issei," Akeno answered while returning his smile with her own as they were once again lost in each other's gaze, trying to make up for all the years they've been separated from one another. The two had so much joy and fun in each other's presence that they did not notice the sun gone down. "How long have you been back here, Issei?" she asked, breaking the silence they had between them. "Oh well, not too long ago, in fact. About a week, I would say. My parents have been here longer than me as they had to." "Oh shit," he suddenly shrieked, causing Akeno to jerk backwards in surprise. "What's wrong, Issei?" asked a worried Akeno. "My parents," he replied. He had been so happy for being reunited with Akeno that he completely forgot about telling his parents about this. He had to tell them the good news, or better yet bring her over to them so they could also stop feeling guilt for what happened. Even more importantly, he had to tell his uncle Barakiel of the great news. That his daughter was still alive. Finally, he could bring about an end to his uncle's suffering that he has been enduring all these years. He had wished and even prayed to anyone listening to be able to relieve him of his pain, and he could finally be able to do that today. "I need to tell my parents you're alive. They are going to be so happy to see you again." He finally spoke, this time with an excited tone. "Even more than that, we need to tell Uncle Barakiel. He will be so relieved to see that you are alive," he continued saying, not noticing the uncomfortable expression on Akeno's face when he mentioned her father, which is why he totally did not see it coming when he got interrupted by her. "Wait, Issei," she said, grabbing his sleeve, succeeding in stopping him and getting his full attention. "What's wrong, Akeno?" It was Issei's turn to ask her that question, now worried about her. Akeno clutched his shirt tighter before answering. "Can you please not tell him yet?" she pleaded. Her answer honestly shocked him, which was illustrated in his response. "But why, Akeno? Uncle Barakiel has been tormenting himself all these years ever since you and Auntie Shuri died. He no longer smiles the way he used to. I'm sure you heard me before talking about how he is slowly becoming a machine despite all the support he has been getting from all of us. He is devastated, but now finally I've got the chance to deliver some good news that will hopefully bring him back to his old self. So, why?" Akeno could tell how desperately Issei wanted to bring back her father's happiness, and it pained her to see him in such pain, but she was simply not ready to face him yet. "I'm just not ready to face him. I've lived my entire life hating my father, thinking that my mom's death was his fault. I know it was wrong, but if I did not think of it like that, then my mind would not have lasted, so I lashed out at him. I was a child back then and I needed to blame someone for my mother's death. I even started hating all of you when I believed none of you were looking for me, and it just got worse as the years gone by. It is only after I heard your confession in front out Graves that I was finally able to forgive you. Not only because I love you, but because it was also not your responsibility to protect my family, more so as a child no less. It was my father's duty to protect us, but he was not there when we needed him despite the amount of times I prayed for him to save us. She gloomily told him. Her eyes shadowed by her hair so Issei could not see her expression but could tell she was crying from the tears that were dropping. He slowly embraced her in a hug, wanting to relieve her sadness, although it did not stop her from continuing to speak her thoughts. Deep down, I know that it was not his fault. In my head, I understand that no one is at fault for my mother's death, but in my heart, there is a part of me that just can't forgive him for not being there for us when we needed him the most. I would like to move past all this hatred, but I will need time, which is why I'm begging you to give me before letting my father meet with me," she said, raising her head so she could face him. Tears still strolling down her beautiful cheeks as Issei was contemplating what to do. In the end, he decided that he would respect her wishes and give her the time she needed to gather the courage to face her father. It was still a hard decision to make, since it would mean letting his uncle's sadness prolong even further. However, he knew that forcing Akeno to meet him now would only push her away even further and bring more harm than good. Matters of the heart took time to heal, and hopefully, in time, she will be able to forgive her father just like she forgave him. This way they will finally be able to go back to spending time together as a real family. He was sure that that was what Shuri would want for all of them. He let out a sigh of resignation as he wiped away the stray tears falling from Akeno. "Very well, Akeno-chan. Even though it pains me to do this, I will give you as much time as you need. I can only hope and pray that you will be able to forgive him, just like you were able to forgive me. Just, let me say this. Not a day has gone by that uncle has not forgiven himself for what happened to you both. When he came back, he spent every day crying over both of your deaths and eventually became a shadow of his former self. You know, he comes by your graves every now and then and begs for your forgiveness for his incompetence. It hurt to see him like that. Just like my parents, he was always there for me whenever I needed someone to talk to or needed help with things. There is no way I could have become the man I am today without his help, so, when you are ready to face him, please remember what I said today. I love you both so very much and you both deserve happiness." He finished speaking what needed to be said. "Thank you, Issei, and I will." She responded with a nod of her head. She hugged him back, placing her head on his chest, which he gladly accepted. After a moment of enjoying each other's warmth, they separated from their embrace, both sporting a smile on their faces. Seeing her smile made Issei remember the very time he met Akeno and how that smile of hers saved him from a life of sorrow. He let out a small giggle which caught Akeno's attention. "What's so funny?" she asked with a tilt of her head. Issei shakes his head negatively. "Nothing, it's just, seeing your smile reminded me how much I really missed you. You have no idea how many times that beautiful smile of yours saved me and got me through tough phases of my life," he said, causing Akeno's cheeks to turn crimson once more at his romantic remark. "Oh. Thank you, Issei," she said, flustered. They soon noticed that it was getting late and it was time to go back home, but not before asking Akeno to, at the very least, meet with his parents. Luckily, she accepted to come by and see them, which made him really happy. On the way to Issei's home, they spent the time catching up with each other's past. As Akeno already shared most of hers, Issei decided to return the favor and enthusiastically talked about everything he had been through. From the time he spent training with Bova and Tanin to the time he spent developing all of his abilities. And boy, did he have plenty of stories to tell. Akeno was very surprised when he recounted the times her father aided Issei in training his lightning. She still had mixed feelings about what to do about her father. Unlike Issei, who couldn't have done anything, her father should have been with them at the time of the tragedy. If he was, then her mother would still be here with them. Her hatred for him still lingers inside of her even after everything Issei told her about her father's suffering throughout the years. Even though his apparent suicide attempt was very shocking to hear, a small part of her couldn't help but not care about it. Her thoughts were interrupted as Issei continued recounting his tales. He was currently telling Akeno of the time he was experimenting with his powers. After learning of my lightning's properties, I decided to test out its power in comparison to my flames. The results were amazing. All of my flames immediately got dispersed the instant they came into contact with my lightning. It was amazing. Then, as my last test, I wanted to see how my lightning would compare to my strongest flame that could even damage my dad, so I turned into a dragon, then focused my crimson flame into my right arm and my black lightning in my left arm, brought them together, and that was when I realized I had made a huge mistake. The moment both of my powers collided, they caused a huge explosion, destroying an entire mountain, and me with it. That was the most pain I ever had to endure. If that wasn't enough, everyone who came by started laughing at me, including my own dad. I even got reprimanded by Tanin Shishao and Mom about never doing that again without their supervision, pouted Issei, even using exaggerated movement to emphasize how crazy that experience was for him. This earned him a hearty laugh from Akeno. "Yufufu, you should have expected that, knowing how powerful your abilities were individually, so you got what you deserved." She stuck out her tongue at him to tease him before continuing, "I can't imagine how Auntie Ophis reacted to your little stunt, but I'm pretty sure you received a huge lecture from her," she said, wiping off a stray tear from her eye. "Oh yeah, she did. I believe that I was, what was the term humans use again? Oh yeah, grounded for like 3 days. I wasn't allowed to play with my friends or experiment with my powers unless Tanin Shishao was with me," pouted Issei. Speaking of his mother, they had finally made it to Issei's home. Taking a moment to calm themselves down, Issei looked at Akeno. "You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be," she said as Issei opened the door to him home. "I'm home," he shouted as he entered his house. He heard some footsteps which he could tell was his mother. Moments later, the women in question came into view carrying a tray of cookies and tea she was preparing for her family. "Welcome back, Issei. You returned later than usual, I was getting worried." "Everything all right, son?" she asked, not noticing the extra person alongside her son. Issei smiled brightly. "Everything is amazing, Mom. In fact, I met someone today you may recognize," he responded as he moved away from Akeno in order to let his mom see her. Ophis, however, was confused because there aren't a lot of people she knew who warranted such a reaction from her son. At first, she believed someone from the dragon territory came by to visit them. Maybe Borva or Tanin dropped by to say hello, but that wouldn't make sense since they would teleport to their house first for discretion, which they didn't, so it could not be them. As she was contemplating the identity of this mysterious entity, the silhouette behind Issei became visible. The sound of a tray dropping echoed around the room as Ophis covered her mouth using her hands, shocked by the identity of the person in front of her. She looked just like Shuri, but there is no way she would ever mistaken those violet orbs of hers. She prayed to whomever was listening that this was not an illusion as tears started dripping from her face. "Oh, Akeno-chan." Seeing her aunt stuttering this way caused Akeno to let out a few tears of her own as she nodded her head. "Yes, Auntie. It's me," she responded. In the blink of an eye, she was enveloped in an embrace. She returned her embrace and could hear Ophis sobbing. "How is this possible? We searched for you, but we couldn't find you anywhere," wailed Ophis. "I don't know how I did, but I survived the blast," answered Akeno with the same answer she gave Issei a while ago. She honestly did not know how she survived the blast. It was a miracle she even lived through that. However, at the present moment, Ophis was so grateful for this miracle that brought her back to them. Seeing her alive and well also rekindled a certain hope that maybe, "Akeno-chan, if you are here, then is Shuri also?" she asked hopefully, but the pain in Akeno's expression put out that small flicker of hope she had. "No, she isn't. Mom died protecting me," she painfully said, remembering the time her mother sacrificed herself to protect her from the Jutsusha who wanted her dead. "I see." Although she was very sad that her very first friend had indeed passed away, she was nonetheless happy that her daughter had survived. It means that her death had not been in vain. "At the very least, I am so glad to have you back with us. The fact that Shuri sacrificed her life to save you proves that her death was not in vain," she told Akeno, who continued crying. "Yes. I am so happy to see you again as well, Auntie," she said. Then all of a sudden, "What's going on, Ophis?" they all heard a certain dragon scream running down the stairs. Great-red had been relaxing in his room when he heard the sound of a tray dropping on the ground. It surprised him because his mate was not that clumsy, so his mind started to go into overdrive, thinking what could have caused this. It would usually take something big to startle his mate, and unfortunately, his mind went straight to the worst-case scenarios, and it is the fact that either something happened to Issei or they are under attack, or possibly even both. Therefore, he quickly sprung out of his room and quickly ran downstairs, ready to incinerate any enemies who would dare hurt his family. Seeing his mate crying only served to further escalate the situation. "Ophis, are you all right? Is Issei all right? Are we under attack?" he shouted every question he had in his mind, looking left and right for any sign of possible intruders. He raised his aura ready to strike at a moment's notice, while constantly wondering to himself how he had not sensed anything, or how did they get past the barrier, etc. Luckily, before Great-red decided to decimate the world, Ophis interjected. "Everything is perfect." "No, even better than perfect, dear," she expressed with more happiness than he had ever seen in years. This is further proved by the fact that she called him dear instead of the usual Baker-red she teased him with. This got him really curious as to what happened. "What do you mean?" It took him a while to notice the other figure enveloped in his mate's bosom, and the sight of that person caused his knees to weaken as his knees touched the floor. It can't be. "Akeno, is that you?" stuttered Great-red, not believing what he is seeing in front of him, until Akeno responded. "Yes, uncle, it's me." Great-red could help but pinch himself in the cheek, praying that this was not some type of dream. How ironic for the Dragon of Dreams to wonder whether or not he delved into the realm of his powers, but that showed just how shocked he really was. Seeing that she was real caused his dam to break as he bolted towards her with tears falling from his face. Deja vu for the second time for Akeno, but she did not mind it one bit. It showed just how much her aunt and uncle loved her and missed her all these years. "I can't believe this. There are no words to describe how happy and relieved I am to know that you are alive. But how and where have you been all these years?" Great-red really wanted an answer to those questions. The day Shuri and Akeno died, he searched desperately for them but found no signs of them. "I was going to tell Auntie Ophis everything that has happened, but now that you are here, I can tell you what happened as well." She took a deep breath and revealed her past to them. Pretty much the same thing she told Issei. From the time of the incident to her time spent wandering the country in order to survive until now. Except this time, she made sure to explain that Rias is a wonderful person and so is everyone else. The last thing she needed was for 2 angry dragon gods to rain hell upon the underworld itself for turning her into an unwilling devil. Overall, she managed to recount everything and did not leave a single detail behind. Unfortunately, like Issei, it absolutely broke their hearts to know that she had spent so many years by herself, and not only had they done nothing to help, but they had been having fun the whole time while she was busy scrapping by to survive. Great-red looked down on the floor in shame while Ophis had covered her mouth with her hands, fresh new tears dripping down. We should have looked harder. How can I ever look Shuri in the eye, knowing I let her daughter wander seamlessly by herself all those years? I'm so sorry, Ophis said, but whether it was an apology to Shuri, Akeno, or both was not known as she was interrupted by Akeno, who gripped her hand. There is nothing for you to be sorry about, Auntie. You could not have known. Issei already explained what happened back then. You were too busy taking care of Issei and you couldn't risk exposure to the world, which is why you needed to remain hidden from sight. I do not blame you, any of you, for what happened any longer. I'm just happy to have finally been reunited with all of you. She explained to them to the best of her ability. Oh sweetie, I love you so much, and again, I'm so sorry you had to go through such hardships by yourself. Wept Ophis. Akeno smiled. I love you too, Ophis. They both hugged each other once more before Great-red suddenly remembered. We need to tell Barakiel about this. He will be so ecstatic that you are alive, said an excited Great-red, ready to leave in order to relay the excellent news to his friend in the hopes of rekindling his fire, so to speak. Like father, like son, I suppose. Their first thought was to immediately inform their fallen friend, who endured as much suffering, if not even more, than them throughout the years. However, before he could do so, he was stopped by Akeno, who gripped his shirt. Please wait, uncle, she shouted, causing Great-red to stop and look back at her, waiting for her to answer. I'm not ready to see him, she muttered, but with enhanced hearing they could all hear her, so Great-red asked her why. All this time Barakiel has suffered alone, constantly blaming himself for what happened to you, and no matter what any of us did, we were not able to ease his pain. It hurt so much to see my friend in such a state. He became a show of his former self, barely smiling anymore, and honestly, if it hadn't been for Issei, I fear we might have lost him after his suicide attempt. I know it isn't fair. Like I told Issei before, my head understands that it wasn't anyone's fault for the events that occurred that day, but my heart still can't accept it. Just, please give me a bit more time to sort this out, she responded sadly. Great-red really wanted to try and convince her otherwise, but he could see the pained look on her face, and the last thing he wanted was to make things worse after finally being reunited, so he sighed in defeat. Very well, Akeno. I will respect your wishes even though it goes against my better judgment. Great-red let go that last bit. Once again, like father, like son. I know, uncle, and I am sorry. She then took out what seemed to be an envelope. But as a compromise, can you please hand him this for me? You can go ahead and tell him it is from me. Maybe one day, when I can finally let go of the past, I will be able to go see him. Can you do that for me, uncle? She asked Great-red, who took the envelope from her. Very well. At the very least it will help alleviate his sorrow knowing that you are alive, sighed Great-red. With that the conversation ended, and Ophis decided to ask Akeno to stay for dinner. Akeno-chan, I would love it if you could stay over for dinner. I made a lot of food and we would love your company. Yes, we would love to have you join us and, at the same time, we can finally all celebrate Issei's birthday together as a family, added Great-red, sporting an enormous grin on his face but happy nonetheless. This was shared by Issei, who awaited anxiously to hear Akeno's answer. She simply smiled and accepted their offer. Of course, I would to join you. I would not miss this for the world. They all sat down around the table and enjoyed a meal as a family. All of them sharing stories about their lives. Great-red talked a lot about the times he spent in the dragon territory as well as the times he spent with Barakiel. Ophis talked about how almost all the baby dragons in Tanin's territory loved to hang around her, that she ended up deciding to take care of them whenever she could. Not that she minded, since it reminded her of the times she took care of Issei as a baby and she loved every second of it. Every other mother felt horrible letting the dragon god of infinity taking care of their younglings, which should be their responsibility, but Ophis assured them that she did not mind in the slightest and would be happy to do it. Eventually, it led to all of them becoming great friends, each of them talking about how they raised their younglings. Many mothers even discussed with Ophis how their other children adored her son and respected his strength, which caused Ophis untold happiness. This was exactly what she needed. After Shuri died, she felt devastated, having lost her very first friend and being powerless to stop it, but after transferring to the dragon territory, she had slowly but surely regained her happiness, and although there is no way to fill the void left behind by Shuri, she was at least able to recover from her sorrows and make new friends. They all formed such a tight-knit group that they eventually all took care of their younglings together, something they had never done before, since it was typically of mothers to raise them by themselves until they are old enough to receive training from Tanin and his captains. All in all, Ophis spent a wonderful time with all of them. Issei continued to talk about all the training he went through with Tanin, his parents and the others. All the lessons he learned from them. He also talked about all of his failed attempts at mastering his powers and the consequences that came with them, mostly everything blowing up in his face and injuring him. Everyone had a laugh at his expense, but it was a wonderful time that he would never trade for anything. He also told his parents about his confession to Akeno, which earned them both a massive congratulations from his parents as they both hugged him and Akeno. Although they both thought finally / it's about time, because they already knew about their feelings for one another ages ago. Even Akeno's parents knew and no doubt would support their relationship 100%. Akeno went ahead and talked about a lot of the things she did after she became a devil. From the contracts she performed to the amount of stray devil she cleansed alongside her friends. She mentioned how amazing each of Riot's peerage member is and how they each possessed a few quirks of their own. She did this mostly to assuage any worry Great-red and Ophis may have about the group, which seemed to work. Eventually, they finished eating and it was time for Akeno to go home. Ophis offered her to stay for the night, but she refused on the grounds that she had a few things to take care of, but thanked her nonetheless. They all gathered at the door to see her off. "Thank you for the amazing dinner. I had a wonderful time." Akeno started, which was followed by Ophis. "It was no problem, sweetie. It is always a pleasure to have you with us, and that is never going to chance. Remember that you are always welcomed here, so please drop by for a visit whenever you can." She's right. I can speak for all of us when I say that today has been the biggest blessing and greatest joy we have ever had in all these years. Hell, I've never seen Issei this happy in a long time, so please, don't be a stranger and come by any time you wish, followed Great-red, earning him a blush from Issei and a smile from Akeno, who nodded her head. "Of course, uncle." She then turned her attention towards Issei, who moved forward and embraced her. An embrace she gladly returned. Thank you for being with us today. I can honestly say that today has been the best birthday I've ever had in a long time, and it was you who made it all possible, he said, causing Akeno to blush at his honesty. Yufufu, you're very welcome, Issei-kun. I haven't had this much fun in a long time myself. I missed spending time with you like in our past, and I am glad that we were able to do so again, she answered him. Issei lifted his hand and rubbed her cheek affectionately. She leaned into his hand and closed her eyes, enjoying the warmth spread by his affectionate touch. I love you, Akeno, he said, to which she opened her eyes and looked at him. I love you too, Issei. They shared another kiss between them. Behind them, they could hear sounds of whistling. The likely perpetrator being Great-red, but at the moment they did not care and only focused on basking in each other's presence as they shared their kiss. When they separated, Akeno took her coat and proceeded to leave the house. After walking a few steps, she looked back to see them waving goodbye at her. She returned their wave and continued her way back home. After her form disappeared into the distance, Issei and his parents went back inside their house. So, when can expect grandkids? Issei, his father suddenly dropped a bombshell, catching Issei totally by surprise. Cough, cough, what, Dad, where did that come from? Coughed Issei. His father laughed at his reaction. Ha 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 ha, you should see your expression, Issei. It's priceless, grinned his father, wiping a stray tear from his face. But, seriously, when can we expect grandkids from you and Akeno? He actually meant that seriously. Issei thought he said it as a joke, but it seemed otherwise. What, how can you ask me something like that? I mean, we are not ready for that. Besides, we just entered a relationship. That does not mean we will go straight to making kids, Dad. Issei tried to argue, but his father would not relent. Oh, come on, Issei. Both of you love each other very much, so I'm sure she won't mind if you ask her. Besides, you saw Akeno. She has grown up to be a beautiful young woman. Don't tell me that when you saw her, you did not want to claim her then and there, questioned Great-red, using his elbow to poke Issei. Issei wanted to refute his argument but realized he could not. It was true that when he saw Akeno, there was this instinctual need to claim her and never let go. I want grandkids as well, interjected Ophis, once again catching him completely by surprise, more so from the fact that she actually agreed with his father on this. Not you too, Mom, sighed Issei. Eventually, I would love to have kids of my own, but we just got reunited after all these years. I want to treasure this time with her and let things run its course, he said, a tone of innocence present in his speech. Despite having lived through hellish training and becoming very powerful, he still retained a sense of innocence within him which his parents did not mind. Seeing his sincerity, his parents decided to let things go. Besides, they were never going to force Issei to do something he didn't want. Great-red moved forward and rubbed his son's hair. Ha ha ha, don't worry, son. We were only kidding. You should take things at your own pace. We only want what is best for you and her. Anyways, I need to go deliver this. He lifted the envelope currently in his hand to our dear friend. With any luck, this will finally be able to bring him closure and bring him back to who he once was. Happy birthday, my son, and I wish you a pleasant good night. Great-red kissed his son's forehead and rubbed his hair one last time before he teleported out of the room. It was Ophis' turn to wish him good night. Happy 17th birthday, my sweet little Issei. I love you so very much and I only wish for nothing but the very best for you. Ophis embraced her son and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Issei could do nothing but smile at his mother's love of him and not only returned her embrace but also gave her a kiss on her cheek. "Thank you so much, Mom. You are the best mother a dragon could ever hope for, and I love you more than anything in this world." The passion in his voice reached her core as she could not help but let out a few tears. "Thank you, Issei. Good night, son." "Good night, Mom." Ophis went to clean up the kitchen while Issei went straight to his room. Today was a long but very fulfilling day. Honestly, it felt as though the world had finally rewarded him after all the hardships he'd been through all these years, and he could not have been any happier than he was today, of all days. His birthday has been a constant reminder of what he lost that day, and now, he could finally enjoy the day as it is meant to be. A day filled with nothing but happiness and celebration with the people closest to him. He went to bed with one thought on his mind: best birthday ever, before drifting off to what seemed like the best sleep he had ever gotten in his life. Grigory, the hallways at the Grigory headquarters was bursting with activity from various fallen angels taking care of their own assignments. In one such offices lay Barakiel, who was busy reading up on a report given to him by his subordinates that was standing in front him right now. After carefully reading his report, Barakiel sighed, leaning over his chair contemplating its contents. Is the report actually true? Barakiel needed to make sure that the contents of the report had any merit, because what it implied is very serious and could have very harsh consequences for Grigory. Yes, sir, at least according to Azazel-sama. He instructed me to notify all the leaders in secret in order to eliminate any possible chance of information leak. He answered. I see. Besides me, who else have you contacted? Other than Azazel-sama and you, I've already informed Shemhei-sama, Amaros-sama and Sahariel-sama. Very well, in that case I will not keep you here. You may go and let the rest of the cadres know of this. Good work, he said as he stood up and handed the report back to the officer, who took it once more. Sir, he saluted and left the room. When he did, Barakiel immediately seated himself once more, rubbing his forehead, distressed from the news he received. He was really hoping the contents of the report were false, because those allegations against who he considered a brother were very serious. Did I come at a bad time? Barakiel heard a familiar voice say as he turned his head towards the source. Red-san, he got up from his seat and made his way towards Great-red. A small smile breached his lips at the sight of his old friend, who grinned at him. It's great to see you, my friend. It has been quite a while, hasn't it? Great-red greeted Barakiel as they both shared a hug. Yes, indeed it has been. You are quite the sight for sore eyes, my friend. Barakiel answered. Oh, does that have anything to do with why you looked so distressed? Great-red asked, causing Barakiel to sigh as he made his way back to his seat. Yes, it has. I've just gotten a report from Azazel that there is a high possibility that Kokabiel is betraying us. It took a while before Great-red remembered who he was talking about. Ah, you mean that fallen warmonger you kept mentioning? Earning a nod from Barakiel, conforming his answer. Yes, that very same one. It seems he is planning something to can possibly become the catalyst for another great war. I still cannot understand why he would want to restart such a thing. Millions of fallen angels died fighting in that bloody war. So many brothers and sisters perished one after another, and in the end, it was really for nothing but pride and hatred. If we had not come to a ceasefire when we did, then our society would have become extinct. Yet, Kokabiel does not understand that. He kept spewing things about fallen angel supremacy and honestly believed that had we kept fighting, we would have come out victorious. If we had continued in that war, the only thing that was guaranteed was the extinction of our race even at the cost of victory, but he simply would not listen to us. We should have noticed the signs so long ago, but because he was our brother in arms who fought side by side with us, we wanted to give him a chance. We thought that if we gave him enough time, he would eventually come to understand that serves nothing but claiming innocent lives. Unfortunately, it would seem that he had never chanced any of his beliefs, and now it seems he is planning to act on them," explained a very agitated Barakiel. Why couldn't his brother understand that their race have no future should they go to war once more? Seeing his friend so afflicted, Great-red moved in front of him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You should not blame yourself for the folly of your brother. All of you have tried everything in order to make him see sense, yet he would not listen. I can tell you right now, that his dreams are filled with nothing but war and death. As the saying goes, it is hard to teach an old dog new tricks, and Kokabel in too far gone to learn how to appreciate peace. You've done all you can, so you do not need to carry this burden on your shoulders when you already have so much going on your plate." Great-red did his best to try and cheer him up, and it seemed to be working based on Barakiel's relaxed posture. "Thank you, my friend. I needed that, and I guess you are right. Anyways, I do not believe you came by just to listen to my problems, so what's up?" Great-red recomposed himself, remembering what he initially came to do, and so grinned at Barakiel. "I came to deliver some excellent news," he said very excitingly. "Oh." Barakiel raised a brow, thinking what news Great-red could bring. Usually any news is usually involving his nephew Issei, and like a lightning bolt he suddenly remembered. "Is this about Issei's birthday? Did he receive the present I bought him? Sorry that I could not make it to his celebration. As you saw, I had a lot of stuff to take care of, but please wish him well on my part." Great-red crossed his arms and answered, "In a way the news does involve his birthday, and he did receive your present, although he will probably open them tomorrow concerning what happened today," he said. This did cause a bit of worry to sprout from Barakiel, thinking something might have happened to Issei. "Is everything all right with Issei?" Great-red shook his head. "Oh, do not worry, my friend. In fact, quite the opposite, everything is perfect, but before I tell you, you will need to be seated for this, and you must promise me not to overreact," Great-red stated as he pointed towards Barakiel's seat and waited for him to be seated. Barakiel, not understanding what he meant, decided to comply with his request. What news could possibly make him overreact, unless something did happen to Issei, which is not possible because, 1. The world is still in one piece, and 2. No way would Great-red be grinning and acting all excited over something tragic. Once seated, Great-red sat down in front of the card of Fallen Angel. "You know that I do not like to beat around the bush, so I'll just come out and say it. Akeno is alive," he revealed, waiting for the card's reaction. Barakiel sat there frozen when he heard the news, not sure if he comprehended correctly what Great-red just said. What did you just say?" he stuttered. "You heard me. I said Akeno is alive and well," he repeated. There is no way in hell Great-red would ever lie about something as important as this, but at the same time, such a thing was impossible. He saw a massive pillar of lightning destroying his home with Akeno inside of it with no possible method of escape. "How? I saw the shrine get destroyed in front of my very eyes, Red, and I know for a fact that Akeno was inside the building when it was destroyed. There is just no way. We even searched the premises for any signs of survivors, but we could never find them. I do not know, and neither does she, but it does not change the fact that she is alive. It is nothing short of a miracle, but one that I will gladly take in this case. She is back, Barakiel. It took a moment for the notion to sink into his head. A multitude of emotions were swirling inside of him. Sorrow, confusion, happiness and many other conflicting emotions. However, eventually the idea that he could finally be reunited with his daughter trumped every other emotion he could be feeling. He suddenly got up from his chair and bombarded Great-red with a series of questions. How is she? Where is she? Is she all right? Where has she been all these years? I need to go see her right now, he started shouting, but before he could leave to see her, he was stopped by Great-red, who grabbed his arm. Wait, Barakiel, he shouted, earning him a look of confusion as well as a bit of anger from Barakiel. Why are you stopping me, Red? I need to go see my daughter. I need to hold her in my arms and apologize to her for everything. You know I need this, so why are you stopping me? Asked a very frantic Barakiel. He finally has the chance to see his daughter, something he never dreamed was possible until now, and yet, one of his closest friends is denying him the chance to do so. He was starting to get a bit angry, which showed in his features. However, Great-red remained undisturbed in his decision since he had a valid reason to stop him. I am stopping you for both your sakes. If you go to her now, you will cause an even greater rift to get in between the both of you. She told me to tell you that she is not ready to see you yet. Explained Great-red, earning him confused stare by his friend. What do you mean? Barakiel asked. Great-red then started talking about Akeno's past and everything she had been through since then leading up to now. To say that Barakiel was shocked would be an understatement. He could not believe he allowed his daughter to go through such hardships. Great-red continued. Akeno still carries a bit of resentment inside her heart when it comes to you or any fallen angels, which is why she asked us to give her more time to process things. I see. Not that I can blame her though. It was my fault that she had to suffer through the pain of watching her mother die in front of her. I should have been there to protect them. He whimpered. Seeing his friend about to cry made Great-red grip his friend's shoulder even tighter. Listen to me, I've said it before and I will say it again as many times as I need to. What happened that day is not your fault. You could not have possibly known that your family was being targeted and you were busy helping your faction. I know for a fact that Shuri would never blame you for helping your friends. Even after all these years, Akeno is trying to forgive you in order to move on from the past. Just give her a bit of time and I am sure there will come a day where you can be reunited with your daughter. Until then, I vow to you that I will look after her, in your stead, and make sure nothing befalls her this time. You have my word that I will personally eliminate any threat that even dares to lift a finger against her. Screw the consequences, and I am sure that my wife will agree with me on this. He said with absolute determination. In front of such resolution, Barakiel could do nothing but accept it. Thank you, so much. Please take good care of her. I swear I will never forget this. Barakiel thanked him from the bottom of his heart. Anytime, my friend, and I have something for you. He took out a simple envelope from his pocket and handed it to Barakiel. This letter is from your daughter. She asked me to give this to you before she left our home. I haven't read its contents because it was meant for you, but I'm pretty sure it contains all of her feelings and most likely other things she wishes to share with you. Thank you, he said. He took the letter into his hands very carefully. No problem. Anyways, it is time for me to head home. It has been a long day and I could use a good night's sleep, he said with a loud yawn illustrating his point. Barakiel did not want to keep him waiting, so he offered his deepest gratitude once again and a good night as they both shook hands. After Great-red made his peace and having delivered Akeno's letter, he teleported back home, leaving Barakiel to his business. Looking at the letter, Barakiel steeled himself for what his daughter might have written him. He opened the letter and began to read its contents. Dear Barakiel, it's been many years since I've seen you or heard from you. Not since the day Mother died, have we seen each other. I want to start by apologizing to you for blaming you for Mother's death. I understand that it was not your fault. You left because many lives were at stake and you needed to help your friend. It was purely chance that allowed your enemies to find us. When Mother died, I blamed you because of my young irrational mind. I needed someone to blame because if I did not, then I feared for my own mental state. In a single moment, my life had been ripped apart as I had lost Mother and our peaceful life. It had been everything to me, yet in mere moments, it was all wrenched away. In my weakened mental state, I not only unjustly blamed you but even Issei-kun, a man who I had loved since childhood, for the tragedy that had occurred. Since that day, I wandered throughout Japan making use of my ability to purify evil spirits that I learned from Mother in order to scrape by, and eventually, I became a devil under the Gremory house. It's actually been wonderful, if you're worried. Unlike others, the Gremory clan is loving and treated me like a child of their family. Rias had become my closest friend and I decided to become her queen in order to repay everything she had ever done for me, so please do not worry for my well-being. If that is not enough, I met with Auntie Ophis and Uncle Red and you know how they treat me as their own daughter, so at least you can take comfort in the fact that I am in good hands. I want to say sorry. I'm so sorry, Father. I know that I hurt you greatly with my words and by cutting you out of my life. I wish I could turn back time to reclaim our old lives, but I can't. I've decided that I must learn to live with my choices, and though I can't take back what I've said, I want to put them away and say this. I would like for us to be family again. I want to mend the ties that I cut. I want to be your daughter again. Unfortunately, as long as I still carry these feelings of resentment towards you, we will never truly be able to move on and be together, which is why I am asking you to give me a bit more time. Enough time for my heart to heal so we may be able to start fresh. I know that you probably want to see me now more than ever, but for both our sakes I am asking you to give me the necessary space until I can finally move on, because the truth is, I want to be your daughter again. I want to see my father again, so please wait for me. From your daughter, Akeno. Touched by the words of his daughter, Barakiel's eyes watered as fresh new tears began to fall. For years, he believed his daughter to be dead, but what was even worse was that he believed she died resenting him. That very thought broke his heart more than anything, and throughout the years, it kept plaguing him over and over again, despite all the support he received from his friends and family. However, by some divine miracle his daughter had not only survived the blast, but it seems that she is trying her best to forgive him and repair their parent-child relationship, something he dreaded would never happen. If he could, he would want to rewind time in order to get his wife back and make it so his family bonds still existed. He looked to his left where a picture of his wife lay in the corner of his office. He moved to pick it up, gently rubbing its surface. Shuri, not a day goes by that I don't miss you. How I wish I could go back in time and take your place. You protected our daughter at the cost of your life, something that should have been my responsibility to begin with. I lost you both that day and I always blamed myself for your deaths. What made it even worse was the thought that your death was all in vain, but now, our daughter is alive and well. I finally have the chance to make amends for my past mistakes. I swear to you, Shuri, that this time, I will do everything in my power to protect our most sacred treasure. So, Please watch over us from the heavens above and know she is in good hands." With renewed determination, he made a vow to his late wife that he would make things right again. He then noticed that part of his hand was covering another message from his daughter. Issei and I confessed our feelings for one another, tongue-poking smiley. A moment of silence ensued, until the sound of laughter and joy could be heard from within his office. For the first time in a long time, Barakiel was able to laugh from the bottom of his heart. "You were right, Shuri, you are always right." He remembered how his wife was the first of all of them to declare that the two of them would end up with each other, and sure enough it seems that not even death could separate those two. For what seemed like an eternity, Barakiel was able to end his day with a bright smile on his face. His fragmented heart had finally begun to meld itself back together.